Hello, welcome from the world famous Brickyard here in Speedway, Indiana, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, live for AMX World Championship Season 5, race number 9 in the TCR class. And boy oh boy, we have quite a combo in prospect here. This is the first time ever I think we've had the Speedway with the TCR cars, but we're not going on the oval, of course, we're going on the road course. Hello, my name is Ame, alongside me is Damon, and we're really looking forward to this combo because it is completely different from what we had the whole last season. Yes, the TCR cars are still here, omnipresent, but the track itself, boy oh boy, what are you looking forward to, Damon?
I mean, TCRs in general, I love me some TCRs. We're very familiar with the drivers. Whenever they set foot in this particular class of cars, it's always a riot. And with a course like Indianapolis, I mean, it's got a very storied history. Really interesting to see how they go around, considering we've never seen this combination before.
Absolutely. And of course, it is brand new combination for us here on AMX, but in real life it's also quite new because they only just ran this particular configuration for TCR last year during the IMSA Battle on the Bricks weekend. So looking forward to how it will play out here virtually. And before that, this is our socials below: AMX Global on Instagram, Twitch, X, formerly known as Twitter, Discord, YouTube, where we're on live right now alongside the Twitch. And of course, you can sign up for the races at AMXrace.com alongside the short form content on TikTok that will be going on periodically within the intervening weeks after the races. So now then, we will probably get into the housekeeping very soon. In fact, we're going to go in now to show you what's what, where, and what we're racing on. So the AMX Sim Racing World Championship Season 5 overview, we've started since May 25th. That will continue all the way to the middle of summer on August 18th. Season prize pool, $15,000 and next level racing gear up for grabs here with a race, with most of the races in the year, variety of car and track combos, and we're really going out there with the car and track combos this season, mind you. Race format for AMX5, a 20-minute qualifier with the script being flipped on its head for the first heat of 20 minutes. Then we do the second heat, the same thing, top 15 reverse grid. So we do that for every session in every race of this season. Continuation of the overview, and of course it has been standard since last season. Driver camps are required. You can join via the link on the AMX Discord or website, with balances paid out of $100 every month, and races are on Saturdays and Sundays. Damon, I know you're snickering there in the background. That was a bit of a mistake. Freudian slip. You can sign up to race anytime at AMXrace.com. Schedule now, and we will have some changes in between the weeks that we have. So in this particular week, it will be just AMX5 on Saturdays and Sundays, where it will start at 5:50 p.m. and 7:20 p.m. on both days. But then flip the script the other way. We have AMX0 and AMX20 on the other end, 5:50 p.m. and 7:20 p.m. same time as well. So the drivers will definitely have it ingrained in their heads after this that it will be happening at all these times. Next up then, it's the prize pool, and it will be for the AMX5 category, $15 for pole, and then if you can actually win the first heat, you get $15, and if you win the second heat, it'll be another $15 as well. So it's about $45, but you need to join it with a minimum I rating of 2,000 and a total race prize pool of $250. So if you can have a clean sweep of it all, it's about $50-ish on the cards here. So plenty for the drivers to play for. Now then, a bit of a slight change here after the prize pool. We'll actually have the leaderboard that we normally show for the rest of the entire field from 1st all the way to 12th. As you can see there, quite a few drivers that we are accustomed to see their names up here, including the likes of Corentin Guinez, Pedro Dean, Chico Soriano, and leading the way, Gar Valero. But look out for drivers in between that actually having improved quite a lot in the past week, especially Gaston Kohavi. Look at that, 4 positions gained. And right up there, Jackson Rezende, who's finding some fine form this season. Now then, this is the current promotion that we're running right now. You can race more for less. You can save up to 40% with AMX's Race Pass, where you can go through for all 3 classes that we have this season. AMX5 iRacing, AMX5 ACC, and of course, the big one, AMX20, a brand new class for this season, and no doubt the turnout has been very good so far. So we would like you to get involved. Just get this current promotion right now. Visit amxrace.com for more information. So then, that is all the little housekeeping out of the way. Now it's time for Damon to finish off and go at it for what we'll be racing on and where we'll be racing at. Damon, take it away.
Thank you very much, Amir. And yes, we do definitely have a unique combination of car and track this time around. We are, of course, here at the Brickyard of Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Opened in 1909, but the actual layout that we'll be racing on, the Grand Prix circuit, has only been open since 2000, where it hosted Formula One from the 2000 season all the way until the 2007 season. And then I believe F1 then moved to COTA, which is quite unfortunate because I think Indianapolis is a pretty fine track, but that's kind of what we're dealt with. 14 corners in total with a length of about... let me see here. My list says about 2.4 miles. That's 3.9 kilometers. So it'll be pretty interesting to see all these cars go around because it is a pretty wide track as well. Speaking of cars, the cars that we will be showing on screen in just a moment, but of course, I've talked about this at length. You're very familiar with it. It is, of course, the TCR Class. High performance, front wheel drive, about 315 to 350 horsepower. Weighs about 1.2 to 1.5 tons with a sequential 6-speed gearbox. Great aerodynamics, great handling, relatively easy to recover because it's front wheel drive, but it doesn't mean the racing isn't intense. In fact, it's probably even more intense than some of the other cars that we have so far because whenever we bring TCRs out, all the drivers go hog wild and it's always a sight to see. But enough about the cars, enough about the track. I think I'm going to take it back to Amir here and we're going to go send it right into qualifying.
Absolutely, Damon. Thanks for the overview there of the car and track that we have tonight. And speaking of car that we are on board right now, this is one of the most popular cars from the previous season, the Audi RS3 LMS. And gotta say, it was really becoming a single make race that entire season. But the thing is, we had quite a mix of manufacturers last time in the first round. Looks as though everyone's gone back to the Audi again. It seems as though the grunt that this thing produces is the one that people go for. As we're on board Jackson Resende, remember mentioned earlier how he's been in fine form this season. He's just rediscovering that touch that he had, where he was in contention for races and of course championships at one point. And if you want to follow how he's going right now, the live timing on the right hand side of the screen, the QR code, scan it to see how the drivers are going on around the track. That's what we're seeing right now, and we can tell what's happening on the track. The drivers cross the line. So yeah, going back to the earlier point, Damon, the Audi single make series is back again.
Yeah, I think the drivers are very, very aware of how good the RS3 is, and they're also very comfortable with it on account of how much experience they have. And I'd like to also talk about the fact that you brought up Jackson Resende, and we did talk about it at length last weekend when he was racing. Didn't really have the best season during season 4, but for now, he does seem to be experiencing quite a bit of a glow up. We've seen him set pretty good podium qualifying laps. We've seen him within the top 5 a couple of times. Has to just be able to bring it home most of the time. Kind of unfortunate for him because he did end up in a few incidents that did take him out of some of the races, but regardless of that, I think he's definitely on pace to be one of our top 12 this time around.
Certainly, and there's evidence why he is actually now right up there in the AMX5 top 12 that we saw earlier. So really looking forward to see what he can actually pull for the rest of the season. As meanwhile, speaking of operators that we know can do the business, this is Corentin Guinness sporting the Antoine Hubert helmet that he's been driving since we first gazed on our eyes on him in AMX World Championship. Looks as though it's just business as usual, isn't it? A really fast time, 33.3 up in front, about only 700s in front of Gavellera as they jump through the chicane there. And that's actually quite a recent addition to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, because remember the F1 layout that you mentioned earlier in 2000, we actually went through the Mickey Mouse section in the infield, but now we just bypassed the whole thing completely. You can see more of the same here, isn't it? You may see a few drivers take evasive action by just jumping the curb there if they can't make the corner.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, I think the track limits for that particular chicane are relatively generous compared to the rest of the track. But of course, it's not to discount the fact that the track itself is actually relatively wide in terms of how much space you have on the track, which means there's definitely a lot of opportunities to overtake. and it's going to be a fun time to watch how these drivers tackle the circuit. One thing I didn't really mention is that the drivers in front, of course, Corentin Guinness and Gal Valero, you mentioned. I know for a fact, if you guys have been watching since last season, that Gal Valero is a TCR monster. He always does really well in this particular class of cars. So definitely excited to see how this race will unfold for him.
Indeed, and you can see why you point out his mastery of the TCR car. That's his road rating, an A class rating, 9.6k. That is something, isn't it? You don't normally get drivers who just drive a road license to get that high, but for the likes of Valero and Guinness, they're both the only two drivers in his entire field that actually have more than 9k rating. But make no mistake, the rest of the drivers are no slouches either. About 7 drivers we have right now with the A road license, so they're gonna get their work cut out here if they were to stay where they are. Inevitably they would. They're gonna have to carve their way through from the back of the grid to come out to the front. That will be something to see. And as you mentioned earlier, the wide nature of the Indianapolis does provide some good overtaking spots, but let's see if they can actually just keep it together here in the first few corners, because it can be quite tricky, especially through the first 2 chicanes.
Yeah, I think the biggest points of contention that we're probably looking at is probably the back straight near the halfway point of the circuit, as well as this last couple of turns that go onto the banking of the circuit, because that's where you're going to end up with the most speed. So exit speed is going to be particularly important in that particular sector. Plus, you're immediately in the draft as it happens. So if for easier overtaking, I'm pretty sure this will probably be the hot spots, but we might see some unique moves happening within the confines of the 14 corners, right?
Indeed, and remember, we grew up watching F1 in the 2000s. That banking was the opposite way of how the Indianapolis 500 runs, because it is counterclockwise. We're running in the clockwise direction, so it's a shame that we're not using the banking or the oval anymore to get to the start-finish straight, but nonetheless, the chicane that we come through the final sector really does provide an opportunity for drivers to just get an overtaking maneuver done, or they can go still side by side all the way to the line. So hopefully we get to see some close finishes there, especially if the field is very close towards the end. Quite a few comments coming in. We see the likes of Meow, Tokyo Hot Drift, Just Keith, Exhaust Sniffer, and Driver Camps and Kuba P. They're all these guys that are the usual contributors to the comment section, so welcome aboard again, you lot. Great to see you as usual. Let's see then. Somebody mentioned just now that the French drivers are... Oh, yeah, I mentioned Just Keep Dory. I mentioned you just now. He said the French are actually blowing past the South Americans, and, well, is a testament, isn't it, to how well Valero and Guinness are actually just masters of the TCR cars, isn't it, Damon?
Yeah, it's a show of mastery for sure, but let's not discount the fact that they're probably going to still be really competitive when the actual race happens, because you can see the time differences between all the drivers. A little bit of a gap between Valero and then the next driver, Tobias Soriano, about 2 tenths, and then Pedro Dean, another 3 tenths behind that. But after that particular group of drivers, the rest of the field is pretty evenly matched, all things considered. So definitely we'll probably see some intense action on track later on. And as I think you mentioned before, reading the comments, I think Meow did mention that he wants to race as well. Even without sim racing gear, I don't see why you couldn't just take part in race. Of course, we had a driver last weekend who drove using a controller, using the internal gyroscope of the controller. So any control scheme is completely welcome here if you want to take part.
Absolutely, and of course, the greatest testament of it all to a driver who drove a controller was Max Verstappen during the lead up to the Bahrain Grand Prix during testing. He literally was on a controller to drive with the DPI at that time, so it's nothing to be sneezed at, isn't it? You can drive with any sort of peripheral, and case in point, look at Tim State. He's driving with a VR headset. I'm not sure which VR headset is that. You might point that out after this, Damien, if you know that one. But if we point the camera the other way, he is actually not driving with a monitor at all. He's literally using that VR as his gateway to see how he is on track. But again, case in point, isn't it? You can drive with whatever you can, as long as you are actually comfortable with it.
I mean, if there is a way for you to drive using just the mouse, go for it. I'm sure if you practice enough with it, you'll definitely be proficient and you'll definitely be competitive. But of course, that's the key word, right? Practice. You have to be practicing. And not just in terms of racing, you also have to have discipline. You have to learn how to hone your racecraft, and all of that will come with experience. So if you want to take part in AMX, I don't see why you can't. It's always an opportunity for new drivers to come in and learn and be fast as well. So, the more the merrier. But going back to the current crop of drivers that we have right now, Jackson Resende actually losing a couple of spots to the other drivers setting fast laps. He was up in P5 earlier on, got knocked down about one spot by Gaston Kohavi here. Still unable to really make any headways. We've got about 3 minutes left till the end of qualifying, and feels like everything's going to be set in stone for the time being.
Well, you never know if the front of the pack can change because Soriano is quite close, but 3 minutes left to go here. Anything can still happen as Guinness actually comes to the pits, exits. I don't think he has enough time to set another one. Maybe he's trying to tempt a bit of fate, but it will be cutting it very close. He and Valero up in front, the two Frenchmen leading the way. And it's a bit of a question in the chat just now whether or not it's going to be Guinness or Valero for pole position, but question as well if they could actually be first and second come the first heat. We'll wait and see how that plays out. But here's another question posed to the guys in the comment section. When will there be somebody who will upset the apple cart? Who knows? Guys on pole currently, when we flip the script, Tim State. Will he be on for his first ever win? That would be a turn up for the books, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Tim State is probably he's currently the driver here with the lowest I rating, but that doesn't mean he still isn't competitive. In fact, he is actually finishing better in this particular season in the races that he's taken part in compared to last season, where most of the time he was a back marker. But now I've seen 10th place finishes for him. I've seen 9th place finishes for him. So honestly, the longer you stay here, the better you get, and that's just how it is with AMX. That's the point, right? Because we're always trying to make drivers better and faster through the spirit of competition.
Indeed. And some drivers have really stepped up to the plate, especially when you see some fierce competitors coming through. So it's very nice to see that we have a lot of people sticking around. There's a question coming through where we're from. Well, you can actually there's a clue just now when I actually slipped the currency as opposed to calling it dollar, we call it ringgit. So I think a lot of people will know where that is from after this. Yeah, okay, we'll just say it. We're from Malaysia, but 3 a.m. 2 a.m. right here is no problem for us. We can still commentate easily as we're looking at Tobias Soriano. I'm not sure what he was doing with his arm there. It looks as though he was trying to really do a bit of stretching while driving.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you have control of the car, there's no skin over your teeth. 1 minute left until qualifying. Again, not really much has happened. All the drivers have had their own space on the track for them. So they've definitely been able to set fast laps on their own. Of course, you don't really have the advantage of draft if you have clean air around you. But regardless of that, I think most of the drivers are already in the pits already. The only exceptions here are Tobias Soriano and Jackson Resende, who is about to cross the line now. We'll see if he'll be able to improve on his previous time. Doesn't look like it. In fact, yeah, about 2 tenths down. So unfortunate for him, he'll probably retreat to the pits afterwards. If we go back to Tobias Soriano here, I think he's still in the middle of his flying lap. If I check the live timing board, he's about to approach the final straight. But is he going to make it? If he doesn't, in fact, it slows down just before he crosses the line. So that lap's not going to count. And just like that, he's going to lock himself into third place with that time. No improvement for him, but podium finish, still pretty good.
Indeed, and that will be a few dollars on the card for him as well, as we're waiting for the classifications on screen after this to pop up and just show where the drivers are in relation to each other. There we go. Our BenQ session winner, Corentin Guinness. And it's almost to be expected, isn't it? It's either him or Valero, whenever those two are in the entry list. But by just about 700ths of a second, he clinches it in front of his fellow countryman with Soriano, the stretching Soriano on the straight just now, in third place, 2 tenths behind. Not that far off, but again, this is just qualifying. Let's see how he does in the race. Dean 4th, Kulhavi 5th, Resende 6th. He may be doing that tactically because he is going to start in 4th place in the race. In front of Villarreal, Dantas, and State, despite 1.6 seconds behind, he can actually probably just maintain the pace throughout the entire race. But flip the script on his head, he is going to be up in front.
Yeah, and we're about to get into the race now. For the very first heat, Tim State and Dantas will be taking both first and second on the grid respectively. Here they are on the track. It will be a standing start this time. So we're just waiting for the green flags to go and getting ready for all the cars to load in. So Amir, why don't you flag us off? Why don't you flag us off?
Yep, indeed. And in fact, in iRacing, it is a flag off because you can see a flagman on the stand waving the flag. I don't think we can see him right here. It's probably just his legs here. But once the flag is dropped, the cars will be underway. But right now, we're not going to get going yet because a few drivers are still grading up as per iRacing tradition. So we're waiting for the entire grid to form. There we go. I think that's pretty much everyone on the grid now. Or is it? Because I think we're missing Tim State here. Tim State's not in his spot. Now there he is, popping it right into view. So that's pretty much a sim racing thing. There's the green flag and we're underway. It looks as though it's a bit of a sluggish start for State. It's a good one for Dantas, but even better one from Villarreal. He punches his way through the midfield and goes up to P1 before even coming through turn number 1. He's going to take the whole shot here, unless of course Dantas will try to drive the inside, but no. That was a brilliant start from Villarreal. A good launch, and behind him, Cool Harvey follows through with Resende for good measure. So Resende, despite the sluggish start for him as well, manages to keep it in the top 5, or at least in the top 5 for now, as he comes through on the inside of Dantas. There you go, he's come through, and look at that, right behind him immediately, it is Valero. So the Frenchmen have actually carved away up through the front. Look at that, case in point. That is Valero. He is already going to be a threat coming through the chicane. Looks as though everybody's coming through here safely, Damon, knock on wood.
Yep, a bit early to call that until we get past the first lap, but it looks like here Dantas, I think he may have ended up with a penalty because he slowed down there and let all the cars drive by. Maybe he cut the track a little bit wide as he was entering the back straight, but that's going to be a mark on the record for him. Really unfortunate start, but again, as you said, pretty clean for the rest of the drivers here. We've got Valero holding it in 4th, with Jansen Resende keeping him at bay in 3rd. Gaston Pulhavi is in P2, but right now the man of the hour is Diego Villarreal, the fan favorite, holding on to P1 with quite a great launch at the start.
Absolutely, he really nailed that bite point, didn't he? Because when you have to actually hold the clutch in your hands, because these are sequential cars, of course, so if you had a clutch pedal in your hand, you can just try to really use one part of the pedal to let go, and after that, finesse the other clutch pedal to really get a good launch, and that's probably exactly what he did. But the start is one thing, the rest of the race is the other, and he has to do a bit of good race management here because he's got Kuhavi in his slipstream coming into turn number 1 across the outer brakes here as per tradition in the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Lap 1 is done out of 12. Kuhavi tried to look through on the inside, but tucks back into the slipstream, and Resende is also looking behind. But behind all 3 of them, they have to watch out for Valero and Corentin Guinness because they're already up into the top 5. That is going to be quite a scary sight.
Yeah, fastest lap right now currently set by Diego Villarreal, 143.89. Everyone else is in the 144s. So he's doing a pretty good job of setting the pace for the rest of the field right now. But you can see in the back there, the delta between some drivers like Jackson Resende and Valero not wide at all. Like very narrow indeed. You could split hairs between them. But it's just looking for an opportunity to make. And like I said, 14 corners of Indianapolis GP here. There's definitely not going to be too many big options unless you're talking about the relatively easy ones that I mentioned. But here comes Valero making it on the inside of Resende, but Corentin Guinness is right behind him as well. And Resende is forced out as they got the inside track. And Valero, again, blinking out of existence every once in a while, but still holding that line, holding it firm. He's actually going to make it past Resende. Let's see if Guinness does the same. Unable to make it just yet because he doesn't have the inside track for the next corner. Resende is holding it for the time being. Wants to try and make a move back onto Valero. Isn't able to make that stick. And Corentin Guinness unable to make it through, but Valero does.
Oh, and that actually causes him to back up right to Soriano. Soriano is actually right in his rear bumper here. The slipstream is going to be very strong. Yes, these cars probably are not having the best aerodynamic properties, but when they're really close to each other, you can really get sucked into the back of another guy's rear wing and try a half chance into turn number 1, which is what Resende is trying to do, but he backs out of it. So is the rest of the field. And this will be so frustrating for Guinness because he thought he could have Resende there, but now he has to toil through a few more corners to find a way through. But having said that, look at that, Resende actually is not being dropped here by Valero. And if anything, they're still close here in the battle pack as Valero still has that kind of intermittent breakaway in terms of existence for the interconnection, but luckily nothing too terminal. He is now ready to stretch his legs a bit. Guinness has to get on it with it before he loses touch of his fellow countrymen.
Yeah, now they're coming out of the back straight. Guinness breaks late to make it past Resende into the left-hander. 90-degree corner, he makes it pretty easily. Gets a bit of a wide exit, but he does have the speed to clear Resende on that corner, and now Resende has to get that position back. Looks like he won't be able to do so. He does back off just a little bit, and immediately Guinness is pulling away from him and trying to catch up to Guy Valero. And just like that, again, overtaking maneuvers here. Very, very direct and quick.
Yeah, but as one of the comments in the screen below just keeps said, it is very smooth indeed, because that's the sort of move that you have to actually get done right in TCR cars. You do not want to go narrow by defending, so you just have to let someone through and just mind your own race afterwards. But having said that, you do not want to actually lose too much momentum afterwards, as we see Valero now attacking the back of Villarreal. So Villarreal has actually lost the lead somewhere, because he did cut the track just now. He had to lose a lot of time to let Kulhavi by. Now he's letting Valero by as well. Is he going to let Guinness through too? No. He actually tucks it in. As let's see that replay of what happened to Villarreal that allowed Kulhavi to come through.
Yeah, you can see that he is going quite wide. In fact, he's straight across the line as he entered the banking, which gave Kulhavi the opportunity to just make it through. And then, just like that, he wasn't able to really catch back up. In fact, he scrubbed off even more speed, which gave Valero even more time to keep up, and in fact, take that position away from him. And now it looks like he just might lose another position here on the back straight. It comes Corrente Guinness. Ooh, Diego breaks a bit early there. Guinness takes advantage of that and immediately goes for the kill. Same corner as he did on Jackson Resende last lap as well.
Indeed, two for the price of one for one fell swoop. Of course, he did it in 2 laps. We just use that as a term here. But make no mistake, that is a very difficult move as well to make, because sometimes you can actually just outbrake yourself, miss your braking point, and completely get it wrong. So again, Guinness, testament to the quality that he has in his locker to just do that maneuver twice in successive laps to get it up to another position in case he's in P3. Now, this is the battle we're looking for first place. Kulhavi, Valero, and Guinness. Look at the sector loops. We're not getting Guinness's time right now, because we're looking at between the top 2 here. A 10th, and a 10th. So throughout the entire lap, close to 3/10 of a second, in fact, up to 7/10 even coming across the line. So Valero, with the fastest lap of the race, has the pace in it between him. Can he come to turn 1? Yes, he does. But Kulhavi's going to make it work for it here. Right the outside he goes. And brilliant defending there from the Argentine to keep it ahead of Valero. So he baited Valero to go to the inside, but he still had the line on the outside to keep it in the lead, only for the time being.
Yeah, Valero cut it in quite deep there onto turn 1, ended up leaping over the curves, probably scrubbed off a bit of speed there, gave Kulhavi the opportunity to come back around. But Guinness is also here to make sure Valero pays dearly for that mistake. They're pulling alongside side by side as they're approaching Kulhavi near the end of the back straight here. Guinness does have a car in front of him, but Valero doesn't. Here he comes into the pass. Again, this corner has been a prime overtaking maneuver for the Frenchman. And again, Valero just makes that pass look easy, but let's look see if Guinness makes it pass. He does. Pulling alongside, not just yet. Has to scrub a lot of speed. It has the outside line for that. But coming out, again, switching around into the inside track as they're entering the banking of the start-finish straight. And Guinness makes the pass happen. Kulhavi is left stunned.
Yeah, but Guinness will probably be a bit disappointed as well, because he knew he had the gap and the advantage to take over that position away from Kulhavi sooner, but because of him being stuck in a few corners, that allows Valero to inch away almost to a second up in front right now. So again, it's just a bit of frustration for the Frenchman here. Just he didn't have the rub of the green in terms of track position, but nonetheless, second place now, it belongs to him. It's a matter of whether or not he can catch up to Valero, which is quite a tall order, isn't it? Because despite the two being equally matched in terms of abilities, a gap like this, about 0.8 of a second, will be hard to claw back.
Yeah, definitely. But we haven't really talked about the car specifically, because we are talking about TCRs. Compared to most of the other classes of cars that we take around tracks like this, they're front-wheel drive compared to every other class of the car that we've taken around, which means when it comes to taking risk and running the risk of errors, you don't really have that much of a pushback from the car. Like for rear-wheel drive cars, you probably end up in the spinning out. Oh, there's an incident here in the replay there where Jackson Resende and Pedro Dean clashing into each other as they're entering the left-hander. I think that was Resende that got taken out there, which means Pedro Dean taking over the position away from him. Resende is still in a comfortable P7, however, definitely not going to be too happy with that. And going back to what I was talking about with the cars themselves, sorry, I was just talking about how front wheel drive really gives you an opportunity to be more brave when it comes to attacks. You get to brake late, you get to recover better from mistakes, you don't lose the car from underneath you. It can still happen, but it does give the drivers a lot more opportunity to be brave, but it's also dependent on experience.
That was the point I was alluding to, actually. Yeah, but it does become a problem when you try to actually attack under the brakes. You can actually go, as I said earlier, narrow to overtake. Otherwise, you will actually sell yourself quite short and you log some of the brakes. As here's a cool little feature that we've had for the past season here. The top four on screen right now: Valero, Guinness, Kulhavi, and right at the bottom is Soriano. So we get to see the faces of the people involved in the hunt. And in this particular case, all four of them have their eyes solely focused on first place right now. And the guys that have set the pace in qualifying are going to go for a shootout here for the next 6 laps to find out who's going to win the first heat here tonight in Indianapolis. And it looks as though the driver with the bit between his teeth right now is actually Corentin Guinness. He clawed about 0.4 of a second and takes the fastest lap of the race. So, despite the gap being looking insurmountable at one point, it looks as though impossible is nothing for Guinness.
Yeah, and does have the added advantage of being able to see Valero's pace and braking points and being able to adjust his own braking points to try and close that gap. Has definitely paid off for him. As Tim stayed there, actually making a pass onto Resende. He actually does make it through. He's up into P7 right now.
Yeah, probably some slight contact along the way. Or Resende really has faltered after that spin with Pedro Rodin. That's not going to be going well, isn't it, among the two Brazilians, because that's just basically committing civil war, isn't it? As a couple of questions are coming through at the bottom. Is the Audi faster than the Hyundai? In terms of overall grunt, yes, actually. In fact, despite the Veloster and the Elantra having more power, the Audi just seems to have more grunt on the straights. As you can see here, between the two Audis, one had a better exit than the other. Valera actually went a bit narrow here because he didn't want Guinness to get the slipstream. Is behind. Soriano and Kulhavi are going at it hammer and tongs. That might actually provide an opportunity for the two Frenchmen to actually get away right now. Really close in it between the first two groups of cars, with a further 1.2 seconds to Villarreal and Dean afterwards, as Resende and State out of our sides are fighting in it as well for the fringe points here right now. But up in front, it is really close between the two Frenchmen, Valero and Guinness.
Yeah, it's a battle between countrymen here. We have two Frenchmen fighting each other. We have two Argentinians fighting each other. We have two Brazilians tailing against each other. Although that one is not particularly close. 10-second gap between Pedro D and Resende here. And the battle for P3 will be seen here on the picture-in-picture. You can see on your screen battle between Tobias Soriano and Gaston Kulhavi. Tobias Soriano actually made it past Gaston Kulhavi sometime over the course of the last couple of laps. So Kulhavi is going to be trying his best to claw that position back. But the main battle that we are definitely focusing on right now is the battle for P1 here. Corentin Guinness and Gal Valero. Less than half a second is separating them, which means Corentin Guinness definitely has a lot of room to just mount and attack whenever he feels like.
Indeed, and he's within that magic window of about 0.3 of a second, underneath 0.4, to just reel in the Frenchman right in front of him here. Valero now might just have to duck in on the inside once again to just break the toe here onto the starfish straight. Across the outer brakes once again for the 9th time. We see Valero and Guinness in their own battle, Soriano and Kulhavi in their battle too, with Villarreal and Dean just watching brief. If anything were to happen to these guys up in front, it might just set up for a grandstand finish. As you can see, the amphitheater around the circuit, where the oval really provides a big vantage point everywhere you can see here to watch the circuit. It's actually quite nice. If you've ever been to Indianapolis and see it for yourself, it is quite a treat, especially during the 500 weekend.
Yeah, because of how the track layout, the brickyard is designed, is that there are seats dotted around every point of the oval, which means that no matter really where you sit, you will always have a view of a part of the track, which is great, I think, for in the Indianapolis, Indy 500 races specifically, especially the ones that utilize the oval. Probably not as great when it comes to the GP layout, but of course we do have our wonderful producers and observers here, and the camera angles on the track are brilliant. We're going to talk about the race. Going back to the race right now, Guinness still closing in the gap, now down to 0.2 behind Gal Valero, which means that if he ends up in the toe, when they come onto the start finish straight, he could look to make a pass. Ooh, Gal Valero being a little shaky on the end there. Corentin Guinness looking to see if he can make a move. Not just yet. They're about to enter the banking. of the start-finish straight, Guinness does have the better run-up. It looks like he is in the toe, so maybe we'll see turn 1 if he tries to make a move there, really close to one another. Ooh.
Yeah, but it looks as though he might just be able to get a run here coming up to turn number 1. Look, you can see a bit of a smile here from Valero. He looks as though he probably had to concede that, but Guinness gets it a little bit crossed up coming into turn number 2. He loses a bit of momentum. That allows Valero to try and sneak one back on the inside, but the cutback didn't work that time around. Guinness manages to fend it off. So, change of hands for the lead. We thought for a second that Guinness might just have to settle for second, but the Never Say Die has actually come through again. As we're looking at Guinness's camera view there, he was looking back at us. I think he was probably just seeing the chat here as well. He might not have enough time to look at it for long because behind his rearview mirrors, again, Valero is also not one to give up a fight. He is ready to actually just pounce if Guinness makes a mistake. He dinked on the inside for a bit, but Guinness was not phased. So, the both of them then will be fighting it out for the win here.
Yeah, we've got about 2 laps remaining. Valero and Corrente Guinness, both of which are very known to us as TCR veterans here. Leaving the rest of the pack in the dust right now. This is a battle between them and them alone. Same can be said about Tobias Soriano and Gaston Kulhavi back there, but it looks like Guinness is actually pulling away from Valero ever so slightly.
Indeed, and someone actually asked if the shirt that he's wearing right now is a Hyundai shirt. I would actually guess so, but it might just be another jersey from another competition or even a football team, because, you know, French and their football, you can never go wrong with that one. But little small details aside, he will not be minding that too much because he has actually proven why he had the pace from qualifying here to just carve his way back up to the front and really winning on it. But the win is not set for now. As we see what happened to Tim State and Evandro Dantas. Oh, it looks as though State has actually been taken out. He actually cut across there, and both of them went for a tango. The sort of tango that you do not want, unfortunately.
Yeah, he thought he had the line, but Dantas cut across there and clipped him near the end, which leaves the position down. Dantas does take the position away from Tim State, but that's not a clean pass by any stretch of the imagination. But here we go, Valero closing the gap even again, but still pretty tight as they're on the penultimate lap right now. The 1 lap magic, we'll have to see if Valero can pull it out of the hat this time around. Because when it comes to push comes to shove, we know Valero can deliver, but against Guinness, gonna be a pretty tough call. Indeed,
and I did say just now we're gonna have a photo finish, and we really are pleased to see that we are definitely gonna get there right now. But who's gonna be the one in front? Is it gonna be Guinness? Is it gonna be Valero? We'll have to wait and see because we have one more lap as the skyline of Indiana in the background then lords over the circuit. The action is really heating up between the two Frenchmen, and it looks as though Guinness that time around didn't have the best of exits because Valero is now right up his tail. The white flag flies out. One more lap to go. This is now make or break time. Fastest lap of the race goes to Valero. Behind them, Soriano, Kulhavi, Valeria, and Dean having their own little battle. So first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth are all locked here in combat to find out who's going to be in the top 6, or at least the way they're going to finish line astern towards the end. Valero, though, only about 0.2 of a second behind. He is going to pressure Guinness all the way, isn't he, Damon? Yeah, coming into turn 5, turn 6 right now, into the back straight. We'll have to see whether or not he does have the run up. The gap is even narrower than it was last lap when we saw them. Less than 1 test every rhythm. Valero has a toe. He going for the move on the brakes quite late, but unable to slow down enough. Has to concede a bit of speed. Guinness takes that position, still holding it as they're entering turn. I believe this is coming out to turn 11 now. Oh, the gap has extended even more, which means Valero made a mistake there, trying to cut across for the pass, unable to make anything happen just so. And yeah, I think this might just be it. Coming out of turn 12 into turn 13 to turn 14, less than 2 corners are remaining, and Valero just goes wide there, trying to get a fast exit, but the gap between them is just way too large, and now Valero can't keep up as they're entering the banking. I think Guinness has this in the bag. He's crossing the line in just a moment there, half a second clear of Valero, and there go lights flashing, and he crosses the line. Oh, he really had to work for that, didn't he, Guinness? That was a great fight between him and Valero. And Valero, you can see, I don't think you need an interpreter just as Dean and Villarreal had a bit of a contact towards them. Maybe some battle that they had, the way that the positions changed hands wasn't very clean. But you don't need an interpreter to find out what Valero was saying, but it was definitely a very choice pair of words. He says in French that he knew that the race was gone already, isn't it? He tried to go wide, but unfortunately it's a front wheel drive car, so you really cannot push that car through the final corner unless you got enough momentum to come through. But that's only applicable for a rear wheel drive car. But anyhow, enough of that one. That's heat 1 done, and that it belongs to Corentin Guinness, your winner. Your BenQ session winner by just 0.5 of a second in front of Valero, who holds the fastest lap of the race. And completing the podium is Tobias Soriano, who had his own little battle with Gaston Kohalvi all the way to the line, but they had to settle the spoils for second and third by just 0.2 of a second, third and fourth by 0.2 of a second. Dean 5th, Villarreal 6th, they had a bit of a ding-dong battle as well, clashing at the line afterwards. Then it's Resende, Dantas, and State, your field that finished the race here. But when we flip the script on its head again, State will be on pole once again.
Yeah, again, State and Evandro Dantas holding up the podium's pole position spots at the start of Heat 2 here. Jason Resende in P3, so he might have a better chance of it this time around when it comes to securing a good position for himself. He just has to keep himself clean, and here goes green flags. Drivers are on. Not a great launch for Resende. In fact, just losing spots to Valero, and I think that is, of course, the car of Diego Villarreal, the SART colors. Gaston Kohalvi there, also making it past. Jackson Resende really not having a good race this time around. Evandro Dantas holding on to the lead, but Tim State is in front of him. He doesn't have the inside track for turn 1, however, so Dantas might just hold it in. Has to go super wide. That Tim State just braked a little bit too late and immediately scrubbed off too much speed. Gaston Kohalvi is pulling up alongside him, does have the inside track as they're coming into turn 3 right now. And just like that, I think Jackson Resende down to P5 yet again. But Corentin Guinness and Valero just waiting for the action to unfold in front of him. Hasn't really made a move yet.
Yep, they're really biding their time here. Now they're probably getting it right because Guinness has actually got them in front of Valero crucially. So it's not like what happened in the first heat where he was behind Valero most of the race. Has up in front. That's Kohalvi with a very gutsy dart onto the inside, trying to get by. Dantas has put it behind. There's State fighting off Villarreal. Valero, I thought, was actually going on the outside there of to Resende. It looks as though the move might be done because he's going to get the inside line very soon here. But Gaston Kohalvi with a gutsy first lap makes it all the way to the front, and now is willing to just use Dantas and State as a barrier here to make do his escape.
Yeah, trying to pull away as best as he can before the drivers at the back inevitably make the pass happen. Here goes Diego Villarreal, still trying to contend with Tim State for that position now. Big incident, a bit of a swerve there. I think he ended up getting clipped by Tim State, and now he's off track, trying to rejoin. Ooh, a little unsafe there coming in, and there goes Resende. He's gone off as well.
Oh, that's really unfortunate, isn't it? That was not the sort of thing we will want to see coming through the final corner, because it is quite a tight Mickey Mouse action there. And it all started because we saw Villarreal getting punted off, and then he came across the track, and then in turn he actually caused that second part of the incident to just send Resende all the way to the back. So unfortunately, that's his race pretty much put to bed now, as we're looking at Team State still fighting on here. He was fighting harder than he was then. He's fighting harder in the second heat than he was in the first heat. So at least the dog in him, he really wants to actually make this more of a race, isn't it?
Yeah, and definitely, of course, familiarity and experience and time on the track has given him a bit more room to be a bit confident in terms of holding the line there. Holding on to P5 so far, but Pedro Dean is still hounding him. In fact, Corentin Guinness wasn't able to make it past the field. He's down, stuck in P7, while Valero actually cut across and is now in the podium spot. This is the replay of the Resende incident. You can see Villarreal is cutting across and going a bit wide. As Villarreal re-enters the track, he actually gets clipped by a completely different car. I believe that is the car of Corentin Guinness, and then he immediately gets punted off the track. So despite Villarreal's relatively unsafe rejoin, he played no part in that incident at all.
Yeah, we thought because we was from afar, we saw Villarreal came into the track real hard, and he used the front wheel drive to good effect. We did say just now that front wheel drive cars are easy to recover. You just firewall the throttle and you can just send it forward again. But he went onto the grass, went completely sideways, sliding into the track like sliding into someone else's DMs, and just ended up, well, not causing a concertina effect, but it might have spooked Resende and Guinness into the incident.
Yeah, definitely. And here comes Tim State. Currently, Guinness is going to finally try and make it past him into turn 1 right now. Tim State braking quite a bit early, but Pedrodin punts him in the back, and he might have just clipped it to Guinness. Guinness actually managed to keep it nice and tidy there, but Tim State, I think he braked a little bit too early, and Pedrodin was not expecting that.
Yeah, but again, that will fall. The fault will fall on the guy behind because you have to actually watch out for what the guy does in front. Unlike open wheel cars where there's no rear tail lights, these cars do. You can actually see the red lights pop out in front of your face when someone is braking. So, unfortunately, about at least 80% of the fault might have actually fallen onto Pedrodin there for unfortunately braking slightly too late.
Yeah,
we're gonna get a full screen replay of what happened
there. Same brain there, we just talked over each other. But here we go, the BenQ replay here. Tim State goes braking into turn 1 right now. Currently, Guinness was also braking around the same time. Pedrodin just completely blocked off, couldn't find a line, immediately went into the back of Tim State's car instead, forcing him completely off track there. Big damage coming from it. Tim State, luckily, to his credit, actually manages to recover without completely going off. The lack of run, the extreme amounts of runoff probably has something to do with that, but he's definitely not going to be happy with that result.
Indeed, but I think Tim would have actually taken a bit of more of an excuse to just cut across that first corner, isn't it? Because he was already punted, so any other driver would have actually taken advantage there, but I think he just wants to play the fair game all the way, so credit to him. Kept the car going. It's just unfortunate that second part of the rejoin may have actually caused a bit more of a kerfuffle afterwards because it was him coming to the path of Villarreal and Resende afterwards, but either way, he is in P8 right now, just half a second in front of Resende, so it's just a continuation of the first heat battle that he had earlier. Now then, up in front, back into the real action here. Kulhavi only about a second in front of Valero with Dantas in front of Soriano, and then Guinness, whose second heat race, we thought just now because he was in front of Valero, he would probably make it easier for himself to just carve his way through the front, in front of Valero, but unfortunately it's not transpired that way, isn't it? Because a few incidents in between have let Valero basically scamper away.
Yeah, Valero took a lot of sneak opportunities to make it past the front of the pack earlier on. In fact, he made it to this position within the first 2 laps of the race, so he's in a pretty comfortable position, all things considered. Just has to make the pass onto Kulhavi afterwards, but the gap is close enough that he might look to make that happen quite soon. We just crested the first third of the race. We're into the second third, and in fact, right now we can see Tobias Soriano is really trying to find a way past Valtteri Dantas here. Dantas is playing quite defensively, not letting him through, but Soriano does still have the draft, which means he could look to make a move here at turn 1 as we enter lap 5.
Yeah, where is he gonna put the car here right now? He might just try it on the inside. Dantas again plays like every other driver who have actually seen a guy coming from behind. He's not gonna defend too hard because he knows full well if he goes narrow, he's just gonna make more, a muck out of himself after that one if he actually gets his braking wrong. So let's Soriano through, but he will have Dantas. He will have Guinness immediately behind him as Dantas says. Now Guinness comes through and makes an easy move out of that. That's not a typical maneuver that you'll see there in cars. You might just see it in bikes, but nonetheless, there goes Guinness up to P4. But will it be too late here to challenge for the lead? Because Valero now is only about a 10th behind Kulhavi. He might just fancy his chances here.
Yeah, and Valero again putting his TCR prowess to good use here, hounding Kulhavi for that position. Kulhavi is going to be under a considerable amount of pressure here, especially when he sees the car behind him is getting Thanos snapped every so often, so he doesn't really know where his attack might be coming from. But yeah, Valero there really taking away the times from him, and here he comes into the banking as they're approaching turn 12. He looks like he's going to make a move there. Does have the inside track, and in fact, Kulhavi is just going to let that move happen without any response, as Valero is now going to use this opportunity to pull away after making that pass. He is on pole.
Yeah, as you can see there, that was a typical block pass, isn't it? You can see Valero actually had the line ready, but he just came off the gas ever so slightly to just block past Kulhavi, stall his momentum, not to let any immediate retaliation, and that worked out brilliantly for him. He's about half a second now in front of the Argentine with Soriano, who he had a ding-dong battle with Kulhavi in that first heat, right up behind him as well. That's something that Guinness would not want because those two guys actually fought all the way to the line, so really, if Corentin Guinness wants to actually take a triple crown here today of clean sweep, pole position, the 2 heat wins, he's gonna have to make the moves stake now because we're already at halfway point.
Yeah, halfway point of the race, as you said, and now he has to contend with trying to get past both Kulhavi and Soriano. Has to take advantage of the fact that if these two cars get together and they battle, it might end up slowing down the rest of the pack, which gives him an opportunity to try and go past both of them at the same time. Pretty big ass if you think about it. But if anyone were to be able to make that happen, I do have my faith in Guinness here. But he does still have to close the gap, and in fact, it's not just him that has to work for it. Soriano has to try and do his best to close the gap between him and Kulhavi. 6 tenths separating them right now. You can see the time delta, just how much time Guinness is scrubbing off, catching up to the rest of the pack here.
Indeed, and the fact that it's not much in it between the both of them, not gonna lie, because Soriano and Guinness are basically almost doing the exact same lap times, but Guinness is just slightly faster. As we come across the line, we'll see the lap times pop on screen here to gauge who has the pace right now. As Valero is first to break the timing beam. Across the line he goes, a 34 flat, 34.1 for Kulhavi and Soriano, but a 33.8 for Corentin Guinness. He is well faster than the two guys in front of him. He definitely has the bit between his teeth, but will he be able to maintain that pace once he gets by those two guys and make sure that his car is not really damaged from any sort of contact that he comes through when he's trying to overtake? Really, a lot of these questions will be playing through the minds of the guys who are driving, though some of those really fast guys, they probably not be thinking about it. All they have is just a target up in front, just try to get to first place, come what may.
Yeah, I think the best plan attack is just to focus specifically on the car that's directly in front of you, and then just slowly make your way back up. In fact, he still has 5 laps, and based on how much time he is scrubbing off the difference between him and Soriano, it looks like that's 5 laps would be more than enough for him to make it all the way past these two Argentinians. However, big elephant in the room is Gal Valero. In fact, he is still just pulling away from Kulhavi. They're almost a second clear, about 9 tenths in fact. And Guinness, even if he makes his past these two Argentinians within the next 4 laps, it still means that he has a lot of time to make up if he wants to catch up to that podium, into that pole position.
Yeah, first place will be, well, it's not a bridge too far just yet, but it will be a tall order trying to get by these two Argentines first. Then he can actually go toe-to-toe with his fellow Frenchman. As across the line comes the top 4 here right now, the lap times will be a 34 flat for Valero and a 34.1 for Kulhavi, 34 flat for Soriano as well, and again another 33.8 for Guinness. You can clearly see, even visually and both in the lap times on the timing screens and the timing screen on the timing tower on the left hand side here, he's got the pace, but he's still trapped here in P4 behind Soriano. He just hasn't had the oomph to get by just yet.
Yeah, and that does show how equally balanced all these cars are. I mean, they are the same car, so it is entirely up to driver skill. But here comes Guinness's most often used overtaking corner here. Will he be able to make it this time? No, he's just sticking behind Soriano this time around. Didn't go for the dive. Probably wasn't too close. Didn't feel comfortable enough to try and go for it. But Soriano here, under a substantial amount of pressure, in fact.
Yeah, but this time around, however, he seems to be able to just get at least enough of a room to just defend the position for now. But Guinness no doubt sees that the possibility of going up to the front is looking a little bit slim at the moment, because he's still not being able to make inroads to that top 3. Well, being in the top 3 at least, because he has made inroads on them in terms of gap, but he's not been able to overtake at least one of those guys to just at least stand more of a chance to actually get by into the top 3. As we're on to the start finish straight, across the yard of brakes again for the 9th time here. He's actually much closer to Soriano. What is Soriano going to do? He's probably just going to stick it here on the racing line, which you normally do in the TCR car. You don't want to defend too hard, and he does so brilliantly here, as Soriano does defend from Guinness for the time being. As someone in the comment section is really rooting on for Guinness to take that triple crown. It will be the first this season, but it might just be an uphill battle still.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, it might just be an uphill battle with no end in sight for Guinness here. He is back onto the back straight, and the gap between him and Soriano is ever so slightly thinner than it was the last lap. He's pulling in. Does he look for the dive? Breaking a bit late? No, he still does not go for the dive. You gotta try and make a move pretty soon here. You don't have that much time remaining, and it looks like Soriano is doing a pretty good job on defending. But as they enter the bank, I think he got a penalty there. Oh, he missed the gear. And there's no way. He's a sequential gearbox. They go away. He missed the gear. He had a penalty, did he?
I think he got a penalty. He definitely got a penalty because if he missed the gear, he would definitely have to be using a H pattern, isn't it? Because that's about the only time that you miss a gear. Even if you double shift, the car will still be going forward normally. That is just the thing that will put pay to any sort of a chance to actually win the race here today, because really, really a dang big shame that he had to just cut a corner one time too many. Oh, speaking of corners there, Dantas gets spun out again by Pedro Dean. Dean involved in a lot of incidents here today. This one is just the latest in a series of accidents that he's been involved with. Dantas, the latest victim.
That was probably the slowest accident I've seen all season, but it did happen. And Evandro Dantas there getting clipped, giving Diego Villarreal an opportunity to try and see if he can make a pass onto Dantas here. Pedro Dean in a P5, not in the cleanest of ways, but he's still there, which means that he is going to be finishing in a decent spot. But the biggest unfortunate incident right now is, of course, Corrente Guinness with that penalty. Really, really unfortunate for him, as he was already doing such a good job of closing the gap between him and Soriano. In fact, he was looking to see if he could have made a pass by the next lap. Unfortunately, that would never come to fruition. Now, you see the incident between Dantas and Dean, and Dean just clips him into turn 13, and Dantas managing to recover. Credit to the driver, of course. But yeah, really, really unfortunate.
Indeed, and the byproduct of that one is that Dantas now has immediate trouble behind him with Villarreal. You can see that that's the first time ever we've seen someone defend here today, because normally you do not want to go narrow like that, as what I said earlier, it's coming to the corner, but Dantas brakes just enough to actually stall Villarreal's momentum coming through that Mickey Mouse section on the way to the banking on the oval here. It's still going to be a close battle between the both of them, but it's just for fringe positions right now, as Villarreal, after having that big moment on the grass at the start of heat number 2, has just been chasing shadows since the start of this heat, as cutting a lot of grass there, and that's probably what you have to do, because you want to actually tighten up the exit so that you don't go too wide here, because remember, front wheel drive cars, the moment you actually keep turning the steering wheel, you're not going to get the car turned in anymore. You're just going to be a passenger to what the car wants to do afterwards.
Yeah, understeer, very big issue when it comes to front wheel drive cars specifically, but of course, drivers definitely have it well under control. I'm going to talk about some of the drivers that are rounding up the rest of the grid right now. Really unfortunate for Jackson Resende, not the best start to his weekend, as we were hyping him up as experiencing a bit of a glow up compared to last season, and maybe we cursed him a little bit because he really didn't have the greatest double heat. But aside from that, I mean, really, what can you say? As the skies are actually getting quite cloudy on track this time, as we're entering the final lap soon.
Yeah, in fact, it might look like we might just see the rain towards the end. We did see that before, remember, in one of the heat races previously, where the rain came towards the end. But it looks as though it might just stave off, at least for the time being. Looking up to the front here, Valero 1.7 seconds ahead of Gaston Kohalvi, with Tobias Soriano in third place. It looks as though the two Argentines who were at it hammer and tongs throughout the entire race are going to close out the AMX5 race this time, close together once again, as we see Soriano was in front of Kohalvi that previous heat. Now Kohalvi gets to return the favor.
Yeah, here we go. White flags. That's the final lap here, and Soriano actually going really deep into that, trying to avoid Guinness's drafting him. They're entering the turn 1 right now, so Gaston Kohalvi just has to hold on just a little bit longer. I'm using the word just a bit too many times right now, but that's what it is, as Gaston Kohalvi really doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell of catching up to Valero at this point in time. 1.9 seconds, almost 2 seconds clear. So the only battle with him that he is experiencing right now is the battle between him and Soriano. Guinness also actually closing the gap quite substantially, but I don't think he'll be able to make any moves all the way until the end of the race.
Yeah, it looks as though this is the last overtaking spot, unless someone can make it through to turn number 13 and 14, that will definitely be the last chance saloon for any of these guys to actually make anything to improve their position. But then again, crazy things have happened in towards the final corners of a race we've seen here on AMX. This may be no different. Kulhavi and Soriano at it again as they were in heat number 1. Kulhavi, no doubt, will be trying to look in his mirrors here, not to defend too hard. Valero well on his way to victory. There we go. We even had the race winner on the side here with Guinness right behind. Kulhavi trying to defend as well with Soriano right behind him, but it looks as though that is it in terms of this fight. Valero comes across the line, takes victory here in heat number 2 in AMX5, race number 9 in season 5 at Indianapolis. Kulhavi comes on a brilliant second, manages to return the favor against Soriano, and Guinness a very disconsolate, I would say, 4th place because he really had the pace in that race, just unfortunately not the luck in terms of track position.
Yeah, and you can see Valero that was celebrating just before the cameras turned off. He's going to be really happy with that position. 2nd place in Heat 1 and 1st place in Heat 2, definitely good position spots for him. In fact, he might just take the edge over for anything Guinness when it comes to overall points. We do have to see when the results update later in the week. However, we won't be able to see it this time around. But the race results for Heat 2, Race 9 here at AMX Global Season 5 be on your screen in just a little bit.
Yep. So your BenQ session winner is Valero, and he has a sip of water here. Job well done, isn't it? Because he really did make his way through the field in the best way possible. Didn't really look back afterwards after taking the lead away from Gaston Kulhavi. Kulhavi with a 0.3 of a second advantage in front of Tobias Serrano, so he did get to repay the favor from the previous battle that these two Argentines had. Corentin Guinness, as I would say, a disconsolate 4th place. He had the pace in the entire heat, just not enough of the luck to get by. 5th, Pedro Dean, involved in quite a few kerfuffles along the way, but he'll be happy with top 5. 6th, Dantas, his fellow Brazilian. 7th, Diego Villarreal, who will be a bit disappointed after getting punted off early. 8th is Resende, likewise in the very same corner in the same lap as Villarreal. And right at the back is Tim State, about half a minute behind, despite looking promisingly at one point to be battling for that top 5 position. So then, that was quite an interesting second heat, wasn't it, Damon? We saw how the battle ebbed and flowed in that first heat between Guinness and Valero, but in the second heat, it was just an easier run for Valero, wasn't it? Because he managed to make those overtaking maneuvers. A bit of luck along the way as well really helped him out to just make that race win for him, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think Guinness definitely did have a bit of a shout coming into that final 4 laps. And unfortunately, it was just really unfortunate that a penalty ended up kicking him out at the end. Was looking to contest Soriano and Kulhavi near the end there. Again, didn't happen. But regardless, TCR relatively incident-free when it comes to the front runners this time around, which is great to see. Definitely the veterancy of the TCR drivers here paying off for them.
Indeed, and now we're actually gonna get a quick interview with Valero. So stick around. We're actually gonna get to him immediately right now. Bonsoir, Gael, and congratulations on that Heat 2 win. But before we get to that Heat 2 battle, we have to talk about Heat 1. How was it between you and Corentin? Because that was really on edge, wasn't it? Because you both had the pace, but Corentin just got the better of you in that first heat.
Yeah, we discovering a bit the new tire and yeah, some new properties with it, especially in traffic. So yeah, playing around, seeing what works and not. In the end, well, I didn't push it probably as much as I could, but I've been a big reckless in Nordschleife, so I'm calming down this one.
Yes, indeed. Because, you know, very busy, especially with Nürburgring happening only just a couple of weeks ago. Talk us through that final corner, because we saw just now that you were trying to do a bit of a tighter line, and we saw, like, you know, we don't need an interpreter to find out what you were saying there just now, but you tried to do something different, but it didn't work out, did it? Because the new tire model really still a lot of things to discover.
Yeah, no, it was the first race, I think, for many of us to play with the cars on the new tire and to see what's the dynamic over time and what's the dynamic over traffic. So yeah, you realize quite quickly that something is not quite right. So yeah, playing with that and got the result I got.
Indeed. Now we're going to that second heat. You really make the most of the collisions that happen to others and really just stumble, isn't it? With that kind of thing falling your way, how do you feel about it? Because you just literally took advantage of that and never really looked back. Does it feel easy for you when that happens, or the pressure is still on?
It's never easy. There's always something bound to go wrong, and this entire lap 1 feature messed up a bit the start, so I was on the back foot, and then that's really waiting for stuff to happen. And what happened was a lot of battle on the back straight, and suddenly there was an opening where there was 2 cars fighting to the left, 1 to the right, and there was a gap on the middle. Everybody broke a bit early, I guess for safety, and I managed to get by all 3. And then on the last section, last two turns, we go 4 wide or something like that. There's some car spinning. It's just about keeping your width, keeping your distance, and managing what you're willing to lose or gambling a bit.
Absolutely, and especially out on tracks, it's like a game of chess, isn't it? So yeah, rubber the green. Luck really fell your way today. And once again, très bien. We'll see you for the next AMX5 race.
Yeah, we'll try to apply the same logic.
Brilliant. Okay, see you again, mon ami.
Yeah, Amir.
Well, he looked definitely buoyed there, didn't he, Damon? Because again, he looked a bit disappointed to not get the most out of the tires in that first heat, but make no mistake, once the luck fell his way, and as he said, he really gambled by really trying his luck in some places. It really paid off, so I don't think he'll be too fussed about it, isn't he?
Yeah, and even if he wasn't particularly happy with his performance, we do have another race coming up in just a bit. So, definitely time to make amends there as well. And it'll be even more interesting because of the cars that we will be taking for next race.
Certainly, and I'm looking forward to that one because really love the fact that those cars are still in chic, I would say, because sometimes when they move on to faster intermediate race cars, you might forget them, but we'll get to see them again after this. As you can see, socials below then for the penultimate time, well, actually not penultimate time, maybe third last time tonight, because we're going to see them again at the bottom. Instagram, Twitch, X, formerly as Twitter, Discord, YouTube. You can sign up with the races on AMX.com and short form content on TikTok. They'll be coming pretty much as they come, because we got plenty of content backlog even up to last season still being uploaded. So that's AMX5, the first part of AMX5 out of the way. Now we'll be actually going to take a bit of a short break to continue to AMX5 after this, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after a short word from our sponsors, and don't go anywhere.
I'm back in 20 minutes.
Don't fuck it up, cover my tracks. Cover my tracks. Don't fuck it up, cover my tracks. Cover my tracks. Don't fuck it up, cover my tracks. Don't fuck it up, cover my tracks. fuck it, I'm covering my tracks. Cover my tracks. Don't fuck it, I'm covering my tracks. Cover my tracks. Don't cover my tracks. Don't fuck it, I'm covering my tracks. Don't fuck it, I'm covering my tracks.
to save our home. We must travel through the gateway to find new energy.
Well, in terms of track and car combos, it doesn't get any more far-fetched than this. We haven't had a real big change up in the lineup for the past season. Now we really are going into uncharted territory. Welcome to season 5 of the AMX Sim Racing World Championship. Race 10 here from the Circuit de Nevers Magny-Cours in France, and in the good old trusty Dallara F3 117 Formula 3 cars. So, welcome aboard back again from me, Amir, and alongside me, Damon, and we're both, yes, in Kuala Lumpur, ready to do battle here with, well, not do battle, the drivers do battle, but we get to call the battle and action that's going to come out here. And Damon, in terms of contract combo, it's so different from what we ran in the past season, and I really can't wait how this goes, because a very tight track, but in small formula cars, we might just get some real big fireworks going out here today.
Yeah, and open wheel cars presents its own set of challenges, of course. Very, very risky to have any form of contact for these cars, and as you mentioned before, narrow track like this, definitely looking to see a bit of action going on, especially with how many drivers we have on the track.
Indeed, and judging by the drivers that we have out on track, it is quite a bumper grid. But before we get to the housekeeping, here's the social media for the penultimate time, because after this, once we get back on camera after this, it'll be the last time we show this for the night, and we'll go on to tomorrow's set of races. So Instagram, Twitch, X, formerly Twitter, Discord, where you can actually interact with the drivers here today, and maybe spot a wild Max Verstappen among our ranks. AMX Global on YouTube, where you can see the live races alongside the Twitch chat. Of course, you can fill up both chats if you so please. Sign up by AMXrace.com via the website, and short form content TikTok. So that's the small little details out of the way. Now we get to the big nitty gritty here, the housekeeping, to just really set the tone and vibe for today's AMX2 second part of the races here today. So, AMX Sim Racing World Championship Season 5 overview. We started on May 25th, just before the Indianapolis 500, so it was on Labor Day week, on Memorial Day weekend itself, all the way up to August 18th. $15,000 up for grabs, and next level racing gear as the prize towards the end. Racing on a variety of contract combos, and speaking of contract combos, this is definitely out there. Definitely one of the more different circuits. We have Paul Ricard on the cards for the Grand Prix, but this circuit used to host the French Grand Prix at one point. AMX5 race format qualifies 20 minutes. Then we flip the script on its head for the top 15, run a heat 1 in 20 minutes. Then we do the same thing again for heat number 2, where we flip the script for the top 15 and run another 20 minutes afterwards. So that's how the format is for AMX5. Now then, this is the other part of the overview. Driver cams are required, where you can join via the AMX Discord and website. Balances are paid out over $100, paid out each month. So anybody who's scored up to $100, they can actually get paid out from the organizers. Races happen on Saturdays and Sundays, and you can sign up the race at any time on AMXrace.com. So, in terms of that was the overview. This is when we're racing. All times are of course in GMT. This week, however, it's the AMX race, pair of AMX races on Saturday Sundays from 5:50 p.m. all the way up to 7:20 p.m. for the second part here. And on every alternate weekend, we have other classes, AMX0 and AMX20, which also happen around the same time from 5:50 to 7:20, that come after the preceding AMX5 races. And this is what we're racing for. Same as the first AMX race just now, or AMX5, $15 for qualifying, Heat 1 and Heat 2 if a driver managed to get the Triple Crown, which unfortunately for Corentin Guinness, he missed out on that by just a few positions. He had the first 2 sessions covered, but he unfortunately missed out because he finished 4th that time. But if you were to get the whole glut of the entire weekend, it will be about $50 plus, just under $50 on the line if you were to win everything, including the fastest laps. You need a minimum rating of iRacing of 2,000, and the total per race is about $250. And if you want to take part in the races now, we have a current promotion going on where you can race more for less. Save up to 40% with AMX's Season Pass, where the passes have covered all 3 classes that we have in this season: AMX5 iRacing, AMX5 ACC, and AMX20 if you want to race with the big dogs. Visit AMXrace.com for more information. So, now then, that's the first part of housekeeping out of the way. Here we have Damon to take away for the rest of the housekeeping to just set the tone what we're having here today, Damon.
Yes, thank you very much, Amir. And as you mentioned before, today we are on Circuit de Nevers Magny-Cours. It is a formerly used for Formula One circuit, founded in 1960, so it will be 64 years old in August. It used to host the Formula One World Championship from 1991 until 2008, where it was then removed from the calendar. Now, of course, the track is used for the World Superbike Championship, the GT World Challenge with GT3 cars, and the GT4 League of FMSA GT. So, not a particularly used track these days, but definitely still one of the good tracks you can see coming out of France. Of course, other than Le Mans, which we all know and love. And as for the cars that we will be taking on the track, as Amir mentioned, of course, it is the Dallara F3 17. This is a Formula 3 car, and I have seen a comment there asking whether or not Formula 3 cars are faster than Formula 1 cars. They are not. In fact, Formula 3 series cars are known as feeder cars for the Formula 1. A bunch of F3 drivers did end up graduating into F1 afterwards. 220 horsepower going to the rear wheels, 550 kilograms with sequential gearbox. Still an open wheel car, still got really good aero. Not as fast as Formula 1, but definitely still contention for a lot of on-track action. And so now with the cars out of the way, I guess we can go right into qualifying.
Indeed, and these cars are very light, but you really have to treat it with a lot of respect because carrying the speed through the corner is crucial in these things that we're now on board with. I think this is Bruno De Carmo. Yep, it is. It's one of the Tony Kanaan guys. You can see here, or you can hear it as well, how early you can get on the throttle in these cars because it's all about preserving momentum through. And because they're much lighter compared to nowadays F1 cars, you really can throw them and chuck them in through the corners and just get it because enough aero is going to come through. It's an easy car to drive, but as they all say, it's a tough one to master. And quite a lot of drivers that are in Formula 1 right now came through these ranks, including a certain Max Verstappen on his way to Formula 1 because this was the only junior Formula Series that he did before joining Formula 1, by the way.
Yeah, and as you mentioned before, really easy to get on the throttle, and you definitely need to get on throttle because when it comes to cars like this, aerodynamic grip plays a significant part. So that big air coming from Rafael Benitez there, and yeah, we were just talking about exactly how light these cars are and how easy they are to chuck around, and you definitely have to get into the throttle as soon as possible to take advantage of the aerodynamics that the car provides because, yeah, unlike F1 cars, mechanical grip a bit on the low side for these, so a lot of the grip comes from just plain aerodynamics.
Actually, on the contrary, it is more towards mechanical grip because it does have aero compared to F1 cars, but yes, both come together to really make this a real driver's car, isn't it? Because it really teaches you a lot of good habits that you bring all the way to Formula 1 because it's braking hard, braking a bit later than you normally want. You can actually brake less than 100 meters in these cars because stopping distances are actually quite less. But carrying the speed through the corner is all crucial. You just do not want to scrub up any speed in these things. Otherwise, that's just time bleeding away. So really then, for those drivers who really love their single-seaters that are light, this is the car for you, and it's definitely one of the more popular cars. At least until the Super Formula Lights came along, but still, nonetheless, it's definitely my favorite era of Formula 3 cars, bar none.
Yeah, we can see wheels locking up there from Florian Lebige, another Frenchman coming in. Corentin Guinness will be sitting out this particular race, but Lebige here taking his place as the other Frenchman on the grid. Gaballero is still here, of course. Out of the TCRs into the open wheelers, and just look on board right now. You can really just see how narrow the track's in and how much of the curves you have to cut over. And in cars like these curves are dangerous.
And you're right to point that out, of course, because I've seen before how the damage model on these things work out. It's actually among all the cars in iRacing, these cars have the most extensive in terms of how much you can damage them. You can actually literally shave the nose off. You can actually see the inner workings of the suspension if you crash head on. Rear wing can fall off. Even the air intake on the side of the car, you can see that little black thing on the side of these cars. That's actually not a homing missile. That's actually a air intake because these cars are roll hoop. The current Formula 3 cars that we call FIA F3, they have an air intake. This one is their air intake, which also acts as a restrictor on the side to prevent any one car to get more power, as Juan Blanat really throws it around there. coming through the first sector. That's how fast these cars can actually take through the corners. But yes, those are some of the peculiarities of these older generation Formula 3 cars, and I love them for it. It's such a travesty that we don't really see these cars in that ilk around in World Championship or rather international racing anymore, but still quite nice to see that they're alive and well, especially in sim racing.
Yeah, I believe the F3 cars that they're using now are different. In fact, they're more powerful as well. But there's something just to be said about how raw these cars can feel, especially when you're on the track handling them for yourselves here. As that chicane just before the start finish straight really is going to be quite a point of challenge for some of these drivers.
Yeah, we saw how just now Ralph Benitez literally mounted the curb, but he crossed the line, somehow manages to keep it on the island and still set a decent time. He didn't improve his time. Imagine he did improve his time by jumping through the air, almost Mika Hakkinen style. But nonetheless, he does hold pole position. Well, it's not going to be pole position anyway because we're going to flip the script, but fastest time in qualifying right now by about 200ths of a second. As we see Juan Blainat, he's on a roll right now.
Ooh.
Personal best coming through across the line, spinning, going around, pirouette, 360 no scope. Did he improve? No, he didn't. But that would be one heck of a way to improve his time actually. Just missing out by 200ths of a second there. And you talked about the curves just now. Here comes Tim State here. Very familiar purple colors. You talked about just now how the cars can get damaged from these curves. I saw a demonstration before how even the lightest of touches in the wrong way can actually shear the wheels of these cars. That's how light these cars are, as Tim State is actually running a Liverpool livery, incidentally.
Really gonna have to watch these particular chicanes. We're seeing Gal Valero on the track right now. We mentioned before last race how he is a TCR monster. This one might prove to be a challenge, but knowing how good of a driver he is, I'm sure he has it under control as well. Not really out there to set a fast time just yet. He's still in the 131, which puts him at P11. But again, we have about less than 8 minutes left to the end of qualifying, so anything could happen. Right now, Ralph Benitez still holding on pole with David Toff behind him. Pedro Dean actually in P3 with Jackson Resende trailing behind him as well. Hopefully Resende will be able to make up for a rather disappointing race 9 with this particular instance.
Indeed, and quite a few drivers who are willing to shake off a bit of rust or trying to shake off a previously bad performance here today to just put it back on the right foot, as looks like Libby Gray's in the pits. Yep, Florian Libby Gray is actually coming into the pits and ready to do just reset, get it to go around again. But the fastest man at the moment right now, Ralph Benitez, with a storming lap at 30.5, and that compares to the previous lap record that was held by this same type of generation from the 3 car. It's about 2.4 seconds faster, and incidentally, that was the last time that we ever had these generation of F3 cars race around here, set by Sebastian Buemio, of course, to put into perspective how long ago it was.
Yeah, we definitely have to take into consideration that, of course, because this is indeed sim racing, you almost always have perfect conditions for your cars as well, and there's a lot less danger in the inherent in the risks of going fast. So definitely a bit more confidence for these drivers to push the cars to the absolute brink. You see that David Toff actually set a purple first sector, which means that he was on track to improve his previous lap time, maybe even take pole away from Ralph Benitez, but and the second sector happened, didn't really get an advantage there. We are on board with him. You can just see how much you need work to get the car pointing the right direction. I think he just sagged that lap.
He backed it off. Yeah, he backed it off, and in fact, I was about to point out that it was a car right behind him, and there it is. He actually just let that guy by, so I'm not sure who it is. That might be Evandro Dantas, if we see across the line soon. No, in fact, it's actually Peter Zuba. So Zuba was the one that was behind him, and he was actually in the comment section just now saying hi to us. So hopefully Peter's race can actually go quite well here, but so far at least smack bang in the middle of the entire midfield in P8. On board with Toff just now. He's ready to wind up for another lap, as does Jackson Resende. So Resende has actually improved quite a lot. He's up to P4, though he's backing off for this one because, again, traffic is a bit of an issue here right now because there's a lot of cars on track at the moment.
Yeah, it's more prevalent of an issue here just because, again, you can just see these cars aren't they're long, but they're quite narrow, and you immediately already see how little track space they really have. So if they start jostling in the middle of qualifying, it's not going to be good news for anyone on the screen, on your screen. As you can see, David Toff setting another purple first sector. We'll have to see whether or not he'll be able to keep it clean throughout the entire lap. Here we go. He has another car behind him as well. He's crossing the sector now. No improvement on second sector. But here he comes flying through that next chicane. And yeah, just as I was mentioning before, look how much you really have to work to get the car pointing in the direction that you want.
Yeah, it's a point and score type of car actually, incidentally, the way that you have to point the car and then just get on the throttle in the nick of time to maintain that momentum that is so crucial in these things. So again, even the slow in and out fast corners, he can actually come through. Is it going to be an improvement for Toff? Yes, it is. What a lap from David Toff. He manages to just pip it from Benitez and he's on for another one.
Bruno Carmo just came up there into P3, taking away the position from Pedro Dina. Jansen Resende again knocked down the P5. So yeah, another fast lap coming from the Brazilian here.
Indeed. So 3 drivers now into the 30.5s. Let's see if another driver can make an improvement, including the likes of Florian Lebigre. Across the line he goes. Can he set a lap time? No. In fact, a better lap time? In fact, no. It's a 31.5, 5/10 off his previous one. So I think he might be keeping his powder dry for now because he is still having enough time here, at least a few more laps to improve his lap time, as a couple of drivers are in and out of the pits, including the likes of Pedro Dean, ready to just reset and do it all over again in this final part of qualifying here. In fact, 4.5 minutes left to go before the qualifying timer runs out. Still plenty of time for guys to improve.
3.5 actually.
Well, yeah. I was looking more or less at the previous time, but yeah, 3.5. Thanks for the math correction.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna see a lot of the cars coming in and out of the pits, trying to get new tires out. And I think Del Valero did point out there have been slight changes to the new tire model, especially when it comes to dealing with traffic. Incidentally, of course, this will be a pretty good test of whether or not drivers have gotten the new handling under control here.
And speaking of handling, there's someone going out of control. Bang on cue. Florian Ribigre, thank you for making our comment to string out that particular segment. Really finding the out extremities of the circuit there onto the start of the end of the next lap. He's going to start a new lap after this as soon as he gets traffic out of the way. But that particular corner was really hard to get a power on because it's such a flowing corner on the exit, but it's a tight entry, the Chateau d'Eau corner. But nonetheless, that was an example of how drivers find time by just trying to see whether or not they can really go beyond the outer extremities of the track and the limit of adhesion of the tires.
Yeah, and also fun fact to point out, I think Magny-Cours has 3 particular corners that are named after famous corners from other racetracks, such as the Nürburgring chicane. I think that is leading out to Tiergarten on the Nürburgring. Kind of looks like that here. We have the Adelaide hairpin, which
actually no, it's named after other circuits. Incidentally, it's not named after corners. It's actually after the circuits.
Yeah, it's named after the circuits themselves. Yes, yeah, that's what I meant to say. But it is taken from how similar they are to the corners on those particular circuits.
Correct. Yeah, that's actually a good point because Estoril, for example, the first, second, and third corners, that's actually profiled in the same way as the final corner Estoril itself. So yeah, that's a good point to point out. I never really thought of that. I always thought that it was just named after the circuits as a sort of homage, but yeah. Good one to point out there, Damon. As you can see, the Carmo really launched his way through the curves there, trying to find time, but unfortunately, he couldn't improve that time around.
Yeah, less than 1 minute left into qualifying. Whatever drivers are on the track right now, if they're not near the end of the lap already, they probably won't be able to set a time. The Brigler, the last one across the line for this particular instance, has he improved on his lap time? He does, in fact, making it up to P4, 130.6. Any other drivers looking to make improvements as they cross the line? Gaston Kohavi, no improvement on his end. Another driver coming up behind him. See if anyone crosses the line afterwards. Oh, Gal Valero actually does take over Kohavi, tipped him just a little bit for that P10 slot. He is now 131.0. So yeah, it's pretty much done and dusted for the rest of the drivers here. I think that is Jansen Resende about to cross the line for the final time as well. No improvements there. And while Gal Valero didn't really set a fast time this time around, he is going to be starting pretty high on the grid for the first heat.
Absolutely. And we will get the confirmation on screen of who starts where, but first is where they finish in this qualifying session, and that will just award out the prize money to them immediately after that. So, your BenQ session winner for qualifying is David Toff with a storming lap to beat Ralph Benitez by just 200ths of a second. That's how close they are. You remember how TCR cars, the guys are very close? Formula 3 cars in this era are quite the same as well. It is up to the driver to make the difference. 200 there between Toff and Benitez, with the Carmo for the 200 behind. In third place, in front of Lebie Gray, 500s behind, and then Pedro Dean also 500s behind. So then top 5 separated by just even faster than blink of an eye. So that's really, really close. Vicente 6th, Soriano 7th, Zuba in 8th, Blaine at 9th, and Valero pipped in just in the top 10 in the nick of time. So 5 tenths between first and 10th. Outside of that, Kulhavi, Dantas, Villarreal, and Tim State will be on pole position once again. He may be 1.5 seconds off, but he may just prove that he has the pace for this one. So, for the third straight time here tonight, we'll have Tim State leading the line with Diego Villarreal right beside him.
Yeah, and here we go. The cars are getting ready to load in onto the track as we're entering Heat 1. I'm excited. This is a particularly unique track combination we haven't seen yet in AMX, and it's going to be an intense one. Of course, narrow track, open wheelers. Definitely want to avoid as many incidents as possible, but sometimes incidents are unavoidable. So, I mean, why don't you flag us off?
Yep, indeed. Thanks, Damon. As we're waiting for the gridding process to come through, there's the flag marshal. It's not a light sequence that we normally used to. It's a flag off in iRacing, as per tradition. So quite a few cars still have not gridded up on the grid just yet, but we're waiting for it now. There's the marshal on the top right of the gantry. He is animated, so you can see him move when he gets ready here. I think a couple of cars still waiting to be on the grid right now. Really tense waiting moments here. So there's your top 4 on the screen right now. On the top, that's Tim State. Below him, Diego Villarreal. And behind him is Dantas. And below that is Kulhavi. We've already seen him before in this picture. Revs rise. Waiting for the grid to go off here. The green flag to fly. And we're underway. There's the green flag. We're off here for the first heat of AMX5 race number 10. And it's a good start though for Tim State. That's the first time ever he's actually gotten into the whole shot to turn 1. There's a couple of cars go behind. Oh, that's unfortunately Bruno the Karma going up. And Valero on home ground. That's had the best of starts.
Oh, that was big damage coming there. That looked to be Evandro Dantas' car already missing his front end completely. I wonder what happened there. We'll have to get a replay of that as we were too busy focusing on the turn 1 incident when 3 cars went off. No crashes, but it's still going to be pretty big for some of these drivers, especially Valero ended up off track as well. Has to climb his way back up to the grid despite starting in on P5 there. I'm going to be too happy with that result.
Yeah, and the fact that the undertray of these cars are quite sensitive, as you can see there, that's actually Resende going through, just taking almost a bit of a flight. But I think what happened to the car, Dantas, was the fact that he actually went off into the gravel trap and it dug the wing into the gravel to just tear the whole front off. That does happen actually. It can happen on iRacing amazingly, the way that they've modeled the gravel physics with these Formula 3 cars. And I did mention earlier that the Formula 3 car in this era has the most amount of damage, extensive damage modeling done on it, because it was the very first car in the service that actually received the damage modeling that was updated. So there's the testament to how well it's modeled, or at least in Evandro Dantas' case, how he did not want to have it.
Yeah, and I think the biggest problem is that you just lose so much aero from that it's going to be really massive impact on performance, as Tim State is actually still holding on to the lead. In fact, he's fending off Juan Plenat here as they're entering lap 2. He's been leading for a whole lap actually, and he's pulling away ever so slightly. Here's the incident at race start, the replay there. I think that was Bruno de Carmo just overcooking it at the entry, going off, actually trying to try safely, but another car just flew past on the camera. Valero also going off, a bunch of cars there. Really not into a great spot as Labrigra actually made a move on to Tim State at the Adelaide corner. Ooh, bit of a kerfuffle there happening within Juan Plenat and Tim State. Tim State had to back off. You don't want to risk any wheel damage, especially in open wheelers when there's no fenders to block it. Juan Soriano takes advantage of that and takes the pass, and Tim State now down to P4. Actually going wide there, might let David Top through as well, but he actually goes in for the attack, goes way too fast into that corner and wide, which means he might lose another position in David Top. Now he's down to P5.
Oh, the Liverpool FC short car, and I'm surprised that he put the Liverpool one on it because it's supposed to be blood red, but you know, it's his typical colors, it's purple. Either way, he was hitting a purple patch, we thought at one point, but now he's definitely gone a bit green a bit because that was just a pure dropping through the table because he just got spooked by one guy diving on the inside. After that, he just dropped for the order. Now he's in P5, but let's hope he doesn't drop any further than that. As back up in front, following Lebigre with a gutsy move coming into Adelaide hairpin to take the lead away from State. Holds the fast lap, 30.8 now. Really starting to see if he could just stretch his advantage up in front. Lena in second. We thought he was going to take the lead at one point from State, but he just didn't have enough of a drive. He has Soriano and Top for good measure right behind, so Top, one of the fast guys as well, ready to just pound on him.
Yeah, Lebigre will want to do his best to pull away because you don't want to be at any point in time close enough to risk any sort of contact with the cars that you're battling with. Ooh, Tobias Soriano raking quite a bit early there. David Top trying to see if he can make an opportunity past the next hairpin. Closing the gap ever so slightly, but you can see the gap between Soriano and Juan Blena is also only about 4 tenths, so we could see a potential three-way battle for P2 here.
Certainly, but how long can Soriano hold on? In fact, not so long anyway, because there is Top going through on the inside, locked it up big time, and that allows Top to come through. But does he? Because they're two, I think, go side by side. We need to look outside after this, whether or not Top can actually hang it around the outside, coming up to Shadow Doe, and it looks as though Soriano manages to stave off the attack just for the time being.
Yeah, and again, we're seeing a lot of cars lock up here, so you really have to be careful how hard you go on the brakes, as well as not overestimate how much braking distance you actually get with cars like these, because granted, they only have 220 horsepower, but these cars weigh half a ton, so there's not a lot of weight to stop, and sometimes you can really be careful about how much braking you apply. Here comes the replay here of Juan Durantas. That's capturing that, and the wing just comes off as he slips onto the gravel afterward.
And he just tapped behind another driver's rear end, so it really comes off quite quickly. And yes, that damage modeling that iRacing implemented, especially with the Dallara F3 car being the very first to receive it, shows how well that the iRacing team have done it behind the scenes. How realistic it is, isn't it? You just don't want to have enough, too much of contact to have bits of your car falling off. As there goes David Tough on Soriano. Easy move coming into Adelaide hairpin and goes up to P3. But there's another thing you have to worry about. You mentioned it earlier just now. There's no fenders or deflectors to just prevent the cars from locking wheels. And we have seen that before, especially in the Formula V race sometime towards the end of last season, where if two cars get one of their wheels stuck to each other, you can actually send one car flying. I hope we don't see it today, but that is a real possibility.
Yeah, in fact, I think we've even seen it before at some point when we were racing Formula Fords as well, as those open wheelers, even less power and even less aero, but still being open wheels makes like close contact racing just so much more dangerous for these drivers. As we're on board Jackson Resende right now, trying to fend off Gao Valero. Gao Valero unable to make any headway as we're leaving the first third of the race behind. And Gao Valero, with that immediate turn one mistake, really has to try and see if he can make any headway here. Otherwise, I think Lebigre, his countryman, is also just going to run away with it.
Yeah, winning on home ground, that would be a nice touch for Lebigre as, looks as though Valero had a very poor exit coming out of the final corner, and that lets Peter Zuba through. So Zuba picks out the pieces there from Valero, who is not really enjoying these cars at the present moment, I would say, because in TCR or in GTs he will really be flourishing, but it looks as though these cars may take some time for him to get used to. As we look back to Tim State, amazingly still up in the top 10, and in this case in P6, heading up. Oh, big accident. Resende gets his side whacked.
That was Pedro Dean again involved in another incident. Yeah, he's involved in another incident. Really unfortunate. I wouldn't say unfortunate. I mean, he literally just went full send into that hairpin there. Saw a body part fly off there. Not sure for which car that was. Might have been Resende. I can't really say for sure. But here's Peter Zuba right behind the toe of Resende. And we really have to talk about these certain incidents that might happen. And here comes Resende making a pass out to Ralph Benitez there as they're entering the Nürburgring set of S-curves. And Resende is still doing pretty well for himself, all things considered, moving up to 7.
You can see there that Resende, he has an all-black car, but the moment we saw bits of detail of it, you can actually see the radiator, the coolants, and part of the engine on the side. That car on its right hand side is completely naked right now. It really got taken off completely, and well, I hope that. Oh, in fact, that's actually Benitez's car. So we confused Resendi for Benitez. Benitez's car really is second-handed right now, and this is the guy who set the fastest lap in qualifying. So really, he's gonna tumble through the order. Then the car is gonna feel a little bit winded right now because of the amount of damage that he has on the side there.
Yeah, and Dean's into the pits, and you can see here, look at how he goes. He goes full send, locks up his entire right side of the car, and then bashes the side of, I think that was Resende's car, and then immediately has to pay the price afterwards. He's into the pits, he's out already on the track for after repairs, but definitely not a good look on him.
Yeah, in fact, it's Benitez's car that he ran into the side. So again, we confuse Benitez and Resende because they both, yeah, of course they're running in the same team anyway.
They have the same
so
color, man.
it does get confused sometimes. But again, you can see a lot of detailing on that Formula 3 car when it's actually stripped away. You see the insides out of it, the engine, the radiator, any other parts that go into the car that makes it work. The only thing missing right now is just hydraulic fluid spilling out, because that's normally what happens when you hit the side of somebody's side of the car. That really causes so much damage. But for Resende, you won't have to mind that too much. He will be minding more what's gonna go around behind him, because there's that Tony Kanaan car. You can see his signature on the rear wing. That's a nice touch. Fending off from Peter Zuba, so Zuba's really got the bit between his teeth right now.
Yeah, and importantly than that, he's still also trying to chase down Tim State there, about 1.5 seconds clear of him. But here comes Peter Zuba on the inside of that start-finish. He had a nice exit coming into turn 1 right now. Does make the pass out to Resende, really trying to avoid contact here. The switchback from Resende comes around much longer right-hand corner this time around, which means he has to hold on to the lead for just a little bit longer. Have to see Zuba decides to make another move. He's swerving, he's pulling alongside, he's past the 3/4 mark of Resende's car, and they're pulling alongside side by side right now. Wonderful camera angle from the observers here. They're coming into the next right-hander. Resende does still have the inside onto Adelaide hairpin, which means that he still holds onto the position, but just barely.
Wow, that was a real gyro cam, isn't it? It's almost like what we have in America in IndyCar and NASCAR races. So lovely work from the production team behind the scenes to actually get that here. But for Zuba, that wasn't the overtaking window he wanted, because he was so very short to go around the outside, and then lost a lot of momentum on the way out because Resende blocked the outside as well. That prevented him from going for the switchback. That also allowed, look at that, Gab Valero to come back into play here. So the time that he lost just now from being overtaken, he has gained it back because the two guys in front of him are battling so hard.
Yeah, definitely, and he definitely wants to make up as much time because we're already past the halfway point of the race. Right now, he's still in P9, as a matter of fact, which means that he doesn't have that much time left to make it up to the rest of the field. And look at the gap that he has to cover. We have about 2/10 of a second behind Zuba, 1 second behind Resende, another 3 seconds behind Tim State. So really, he has to make maybe like 5 or 6 seconds per lap in order to be in with a shout. But definitely doesn't look like it's going to happen this time around, unless like there's a catastrophic accident that involves every car in front of him.
And it might start with any of these battles that are going on very closely, like the likes of Toff and Soriano. You can see there's under a second between them. State, Resende, Zuba, and Valero also the next close big battle here. Again, Resende forces Zuba to go around the outside, stalls his momentum, and that again allows Valero to just inch ever so closely to the back of them. All the while, and Tim State is just really minding his own business here. The three of them battling so hard that he can literally just cruise it all the way to the end, as Resende leaves a bit of room on the inside there for a second. We thought Zuba might just dive on the inside, but he couldn't make it through that time. And Valero, watching brief, waiting for these two to just make a mistake to pick other pieces.
Yeah, you're not close enough to make a move happen, and even if you do, you don't want to risk any side contact with any shunts or slams with the car in front of you, because then you both end up getting taken out. And Gal Valero here, credit to him, he's still being relatively patient, keeping the gap between him and Peter Zuba slow. We're on board with Zuba right now, as he's still trying to come out onto Resende, but in the meantime, he's already closed the gap between him and Tim State. So Tim State is now going to be caught in this battle. It remains to see whether or not he'll actually let them through.
Yep, or is he going to fight for it, because he is well on his way to picking up his best ever finish, I think, in AMX, because this will really do his confidence a lot of good. He had a good fight up to this point. Kept it all together despite being spooked earlier. Now is a real test of his resolve here. Can he hold back here? Look at that lovely camera view that we have on the side here between the 4 drivers. States, Resende, Zuba, and Valero all in one shot. As now this is the first attack here from Resende, and once again, it looks as though Tim just opened up the door once again to let Resende through. He's gonna fight it out just a bit, but unfortunately, this particular battle is gonna be lost for him.
Yeah, I think he got a little bit spooked and then break a little bit too late there, forcing him to go wide on the hairpin, which gave Resende the opportunity to make the pass happen afterwards, and then he loses that next position to Peter Zuba here. Really not trying to fight too hard, don't want to risk any damage to any one of these drivers, don't want to interrupt this battle they have going on between them, despite the fact that he is part of it himself. Has got now the last driver to make it through is Valero, coming into the next right-hander, makes it clean as well. Tim State giving them quite a bit of quarter. So now from P6 all the way down to P9 is Tim State. Not the best look for him, but he does want to make sure that he doesn't really get into the way of any other drivers.
Yeah, that's fair play to him as well, because you do not want to be involved in any shenanigans that will jeopardize your own race. And case in point there, Resende really mounting the curves. He wants to really get on with it. He's doing a bit of what Ralph Benitez was doing by just really launching it. And if he gets it all wrong, he would do like what Rubens Barrichello did back in 2003 or 2004, if I'm not mistaken, when he got the curve completely all wrong. In fact, it was 2003, because by this time the circuit was reprofiled from when it was just a bit of a clumsy chicane with gravel on the outside to a bit more of an overtaking spot towards the end here. As we're looking at a battle initially in the inset for P2, now we're looking at it big time here between Juan Blainat and David Toff. So Toff, who has the speed to get it up to the front here, proves that he has been able to carve his way through. Now he's got a tough cookie to crack here in the form of Juan Blainat.
Don't you mean a tough cookie to crack? Ha 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 ha. I'm just kidding. I should really
we'll talk about
this late hour.
Okay, but I mean, as much as I would say it was lame, but unfortunately it's not the right driver we were aiming for anyway, because Toff is the one that's chasing it. If it was Chop that was the one being chased, yes, that would be applicable, but you know, pedantic.
Yeah, but regardless, he still made really good headway after making a pass Soriano there, which he's still on the tail of Juan Blainat. I think Toff is really coming up to us as one of the relatively more experienced drivers when it comes to F3 cars specifically, because he's doing very well for himself here.
And case in point, why he just missed out on setting the fastest time in qualifying by, in fact, he set the fastest time in qualifying by just 200ths of a second. So really then, it just proves how well he can literally nail that lap when he needed the most. Now he's going to have to put his racecraft to good use here, coming out to the Adelaide hairpin again. Around the inside goes Toff. Blainat, I think Blainat just outbraked himself. Yes, he does. Toff. And you can see how lackadaisical he looks on his face there. Really was just inching ever so closer to the back of him and just put Blainat into the mistake, ready to get by.
Yeah, an unforced error, actually a forced error from Blainat there. I think Toff really spooked him into braking too late, ended up locking up a bit, going wide. But that gives Toff the opportunity to make it pass. However, the driver in front of him, Florian Lavigre, 3 seconds clear, hasn't had any competition throughout the entirety of this race. So David Toff is really going to have to try hard to keep up if he ever does.
But he's running out of laps to do so, because it's about 3.1 seconds now. So if he could just do a monstrous final couple of laps, maybe 1.5 seconds each lap, then he might have a chance to actually try and overtake. But again, chasing is one thing, overtaking is another, and at Magny-Cours, you don't have that many overtaking spots. You can try it at the LA happen if you really are close, or coming through there at around turn number 15 at the Lychee corner. That's as far as you can go in terms of overtaking spots here.
Yeah, and we already saw what happened if you do the Adelaide hairpin wrong, as demonstrated by Pedro Dean earlier. If you lock out the brakes as you're going in, you're definitely going to end up either clipping somebody or going completely off track and into the runoff. So very dangerous overtaking maneuver, overtaking opportunity, despite the fact that it is one of the only places you really get a chance to make a big move. As we're back here with a battle for P6, it is Peter Zupa still trying to hunt down Jackson Resende here. Oh, they're really close, trying to swerve to avoid any contact, but Resende still has the inside track, and Peter Zupa has been trying to get past. Do the other happen, goes wide, overcooks it, and spins out of the hairpin, really unfortunate, and immediately put paid to that battle.
Oh, it's such a shame, isn't it? Because he actually made good progress up through the field. Now he's just gonna let everyone else pick up the pieces of his hard-earned work, which will not be rewarded handsomely for this one. So Zuba does immediately get by Tim State immediately because they was also side by side at that point when they were recovering. But the upshot for him it is that he will start up further in front for heat number 2. But again, just proves how tough, how easy these cars can loop around if you actually, when you least suspect it.
Yeah, let's not forget these cars are still rear-wheel drive. Despite the fact that they do have a lot of mechanical grip, you can still have the car run out from underneath you. Here it is on the replay there. You can see Peter Zuba. He goes in for the pass. He almost makes it out, but I think he goes on the throttle a little bit too early there. Ends up trying to steer left to go right, and then immediately just loses it on the exit. Went on the throttle way too early there.
Yep, and the balance shifted rearwards. That was enough to send him out. As we're on the final lap now, white flag flies for Florian Lebigre, and that gap that he had in front as a safe cushion was enough to actually just secure him for the win. But again, you never know what might happen in the final lap, so let's not jinx that. 3.7 seconds behind is David Tough, and behind him by just half a second, it's Juan Blainat. But immediately close to his vicinity as well, as he's putting a lot of commitment through there, is Tobias Soriano. Soriano then is not going to give up a podium position, not by a long shot.
Yeah, look at him just fighting on the wheel to keep the car pointing forwards. And despite all that, he's still managing to claw back a lot of time between him and Juan Blainat. Juan Blainat actually made a couple of unforced errors after the fact that he got overtaken by David Topp there. So probably still not 100% used to the car itself, but P3, nothing to sneeze at. But I said but way too many times in the span of 5 seconds. Regardless, he still has to hold on to that position just a little bit longer. Here comes your race winner. Heat 1 winner is Florian Lebigre. No lights to flash, so he is swerving as he crosses the line. Well-deserved win for him. Had no competition from start to finish.
Yep, once he took the lead, he just literally went away from it all the way to the end. And that was a fine move because, again, the moment that he took the lead away from Tim State, he really just monotonously go up in front. Didn't really look back, just went all the way to the end with a convincing victory by about 3.7 seconds. Right top, Blainat and Soriano, that will complete your top 4 with Kulhavi 37 seconds behind. Top 5 it is. And right at the back, Evandro Dantas, who was the unfortunate recipient of the testing, shall we say. He was the guinea pig to the damage model that we are seeing nowadays in iRacing. Well, he saw it firsthand and got the brunt of it all the way to the end. Now he's going to be the last driver to be classified the finisher here today. So all 14 drivers that started here will come across the line to finish the race here. He was up in P3 at one point, dropped all the way to P14. Such a real shame. Here's Dantas now, crosses the line, and that's it. That will be the end of the first year. He was a bit disappointed the fact that the damage model came to bite him real hard. But the good news for him is that he will be starting on pole position for heat number 2. So for now, heat number 1, your BenQ session winner is Florian Lebigre with a 3.7 second gap in front of David Toff, and third place Juan Blainat, with Toff having the fastest lap. So again, shows that he was the fastest driver in the entire field. Can't wait to see how he could do the same thing again by starting all the way at the back in P13 to be up in front. The other noteworthy drivers that really didn't get the best of results is Ralph Benitez, who was one of the fastest qualifiers in the qualifying session. He finishes 13th after being whacked by Pedro Dean, incidentally, and Dean just finishes in position in front of him. Let's see if those two Brazilians might have sparks flying. They will be starting in second and third respectively, and the rest of the field then will also be contesting for the second heat here in AMX5.
Yeah, we really have to see whether or not they'll be able to keep it neat and tidy this time around, although, knock on wood, hopefully we can keep it clean. They're on track right now. Green flags are going to be waving up soon. Let's see if all of them get a good launch.
Green, green, green.
Green flags are out. Here comes the launch coming up for drivers. Pretty good launches, all things considered, from all these drivers. In fact, Evandro Dantas makes it to the front as they're entering turn 1 in just a little bit, and immediately he goes off!
Oh my word. He had the start of dreams at one point. He had the lead there, dropped it coming through turn number 1, and he got collected. So 2 races in a row. what does this man have to do to get a result here today, but Dantas front wing gets knocked off again. But rest of the field come through. Benitez and Dean up in front. Valero comes through on the inside of Villarreal. There he takes the position away. Can he break it in time? No. He actually locks it up. Going through Adelaide Hairpin, locks it, comes around, and the second heat here is all Armageddon. It's all kicking off right now, David.
Yeah, I think I just saw a front wing come off. I'm not entirely sure from which car it is. Oh, that was Lamigra. He's just tapped the back of the car and immediately goes flying and takes a lot of damage on the way down as well. So, first finisher of Heat 1. Unfortunately, not really doing the best here. Gaston Clauby goes off next. And really, it's a cacophony of just massive errors from some of these drivers here.
Yeah, and we did say just now, wheel-to-wheel contact can actually get the driver in the air, but in this particular case, it was actually front wing to rear wheel contact that launched Lippigate into the air. So another driver goes up, that's Villarreal, going very wide. This second heat is all kicking off here, Damon.
God, we're not even done with the first lap yet, and immediately we had a couple of massive incidents. We might get some picture-in-picture replays of what went on later on in the race, but here it is, the first Evandro Dantas incident. Coming into turn 1, he immediately just overcooks that, loses grip on the rear tires, and as he's trying to come back in, he taps another car on the way back, recovering, loses his front wing yet again, and immediately is completely out. In fact, Labigra is also out of the race completely this time.
Indeed. And meanwhile, resumption of previous battles in that first heat. This is again Peter Zuba and Jackson Rezende. So both of these guys are almost inseparable here today, the Hungarian and the Brazilian. But it looks as though the Brazilian is doing the same trick that he did in the previous heat to stave off the attack of Zuba. And once again, Zuba might be feeling a bit of deja vu here. The same guy that he's been battling, and he's still stuck behind him.
Yeah, a little bit further up the field this time around, however, is Gael Valero here, now in P3, relatively comfortable position. Now is the only Frenchman left on the track. We'll be trying to see if he can make it past Pedro Dean here and Ralph Benitez, who is slowly pulling away from these two cars. So, Gael Valero, 2 seconds clear behind Pedro Dean, but anything can still happen. We're still only in lap 2, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. I know that first lap had a bunch of stuff that made it feel like the longest lap in the history of motorsports. But yeah, we're still only just kicking off Heat 2 here.
Amazing, isn't it? It's how that the incidents happened in that first lap was enough to fill the highlight reel of an entire race, not gonna lie. So really then, what's gonna be in store for the rest of the entire heat after this? And really then, how the drivers gonna settle themselves after that crazy first lap. Though, having said that, looks as though the field has actually settled in a bit of rhythm. Now they're gonna have to focus on the rest of the race. Here, meanwhile, we're looking at between Peter Zuba and Jackson Resende. Again, they're doing the same battle that they had in Heat 1, but Zuba gets a good run coming out there. Adelaide Hairpin, Damon.
Yeah, same song and dance, but Resende does still have the inside track here. You can see the picture-in-picture here of Labigra's incident. He actually just turns in and then clips another driver on the way onto the line, goes on to the runoff, and I think he may have clipped the wall a bit. And no, he didn't lose, but he did suffer some severe suspension damage, which basically just forced him out of the race.
Yep, because the undertree these cars are also quite sensitive, and the suspension components. You can see that the wishbones, the suspension arms, and the way that the cars actually turn in really does put into perspective how these cars are so fragile, and one slight hit is enough to just cause even the slightest of hits terminal damage.
Yeah. Meanwhile, back in the front here, we were talking about this before we trailed off into the replay. Here's Peter Zuba still not being able to make it past Jackson Resende, even after all this time, adding on to the time spent behind him in lap Heat 1 as well. Coming into the start finish straight, ooh, I just lost it on the exit there, and in fact loses quite a bit of time to Jackson Resende. So now he has to spend a lot of time in the race just trying to catch back up.
And look at the lap time. It was almost to the 10th how these guys were actually close to each other, but because he had the start finish line is actually quite close to the chicane anyway, it would be deceiving to tell you that on the timing screen, oh, he was only a 10th off that time, right? Why is he so far behind? Well, you can see the visual indicator there. He got the chicane exit completely crossed out. Luckily, he didn't spin it around. Otherwise, it'll be, again, another case of deja vu. Chasing after Jackson Resende, he just drops it.
Yeah, might maybe a little bit of pressure coming into him right now, trying to make force an opportunity to pass. But now he has to calm down a bit, find time within the lap to actually close the gap between him and Resende. Gap is still holding strong at about 0.8 of a second for the time being. Here is your current race leader, Ralph Benitez, still fending off, slightly pulling away from Pedro Dean here, but Pedro Dean is losing time to Gal Valero.
Yep, and also the fact that the top three are basically just in a league of their own, isn't it? Because it's so spread out right now, and Pedro Dean can finally put to rest at least the loose cannon racing that he has been having here tonight by finishing a very strong second place. There he is right now, 2.1 seconds behind. Unless, of course, Gal Valero can actually make a fight out of it. Then it will be making it very interesting for the both of them. Across the line they go, 30.7 for Benitez, 30.7 for Dean as well, 30.9, 30.8 Valero and Resende. So pretty much even pace for those guys up in front. And across the line that time, look at that final sector between Benitez and Dean, exactly up to the 1,000.
Yeah, and we're trying to go back to our resident F3 surgeon here, David Toff, holding out at P8, unable to really make any headways. Is not closing the gap between him and Bruno De Carmo enough to really make a move. We're still on board with Peter Zuba here. He's going to be really careful at the Adelaide hairpin. And remember, that was the corner that basically put paid to his chances of battling Jackson Resende for that P6. So he's going to have to try and be a bit more careful when he navigates that corner in the future.
Yeah, very circumspect, especially the fact that he probably got a bit too excited to get back on the throttle to just get alongside. Though he will be wiser to that one again, as now he is prepared to just reel in the Brazilian bit by bit as we're on board with Bruno De Carmo, the teammate to Jackson Resende. And incidentally, very snazzy black and yellow colors, almost like Team Lotus back in the 80s, isn't it? But he won't be minding too much about the paint job at the moment. He wants to get by an Argentine right in front of him, Tobias Soriano, who's proven to be quite tough to pass as well, as Gaston Kohavi can attest what happened in Indianapolis between the both of them, that they battled for 2 consecutive heats. Now the Carmo is going to experience the exact same thing. As across the line goes the leaders, Benitez is setting the pace still, 30.6 up in front, so he really is showing why he could have actually been in the battle for that first heat win had it not been for that accident.
Yeah, he's definitely pulling away from Pedro Dean here. It was 2.2 seconds last lap. It's now 2.6. While Dean is losing time to Gal Valero ever so slightly. Really not quickly as Valero would possibly have hoped. But here comes Bruno De Carmo entering Adelaide hairpin here, right onto the tail of Tobias Soriano. Watch the exit there. Nice and clean. Didn't really get onto the throttle early enough. Does lose a little bit of time, but still keeping it neat and tidy through there. And the comments are asking what engine these cars are running. I believe these are 2-liter inline 4s. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Correct. And they come in the different engine configurations because this is actually an open chassis, open engine formula back in those days. Of course, Dallara was the one that actually was the most successful Dallara because it kicked out all the other manufacturers. But in terms of engines, you got Volkswagens, you got Mercedes-Benz engines. Heck, you even had Opel engines, and in Italy you had ABOF engines. So there's literally a big choice of engines available in these cars. Oh yeah, let's not forget Renault as well. But the most prominent ones, especially towards the end of this era of regulation, was Volkswagen and Mercedes.
Yeah, and definitely a lot of our money goes into the R&D for those cars specifically, as a bit of a shift there in terms of timing. Ooh, I think Tobias Soriano may have cooked it a little bit on the exit. I think he may have slowed down just a little bit. Might be the penalty.
Penalty. Looks likely to be a penalty. There's no way that he could have misshifted that one. He really caught a corner one time too many, and that will allow David Toff to get up to the back of him, as these are between 2 teammates right now. This is Blaina and it's Villarreal and Cool Harvey together. Though that was just a easy maneuver for the both of them because they want to avoid committing seppuku among each other.
Yep. Jackson Resende here, still actually closing the gap onto Gal Valero quite a bit right now. Still, Valero not able to make any progress in terms of the gap between him and Pedro Dean, while Ralph Benitez is in front pulling away from the rest of the pack. So Benitez is finding himself into a little bit of a Labigre situation here, where he's pretty much going to remain uncontested for the duration of this race. We're past the halfway point already, and no one's going to really force him into any errors regardless It's going to be a big battle coming along, I think, brewing between what looks like the cars of Jason Rezende, Peter De Zuba, and Bruno De Carmo together.
Yep, but it's a bit strung out, isn't it? It's not really as close as we would have liked to see, but in this era of Formula 3, it is actually more or less a processional, actually, to be honest. If you watch the last years of Formula 3 Europe, yeah, that was often the case, because one guy would just be up in front. They'll stay there throughout the entire weekend because there was no reverse grid races in that championship, which was pretty much a bit stale at times. But when you do have some of those crazy battles, it does get very antsy, especially when these cars are so evenly matched.
Yeah, and there is a certain difference that you can have when it comes to like how races go. If you have a relatively uneventful race, you probably don't end up paying too much attention to what ends up happening, even if there was a big incident. But on the flip side, if you have a race that's too chaotic, you end up just... I'm speaking from a commentator's point of view, right? Too little action, we don't really pay attention to much of stuff going on the track. Too much action, and then we end up too tired for the rest of the race.
And case in point, like one of the guys, I think Driver Cams was asking, are the drivers actually tired? Well, depends on who you ask, because I think some drivers were able to just do 2 consecutive races in 2 different categories in the same category anyway. So they're really out for it. They just want to just go out and have a bit of fun in between. While others, it might be a stretch, because I've seen drivers that done endurance races up to 4 hours. They can only last about 15. So it's an individual thing, isn't it? Not many drivers can do the long one, as you can see Pedro Dean there, nearly proving my point across there, because he might have actually let fatigue come through for a second, or maybe just a lapse in concentration that could have easily gone completely catastrophic. But luckily, kept it together and still is gapping Valero by about a second.
Yeah, and I believe what Driver Cast was trying to do was a pun because of my David Hoff pun. And he commented that right afterwards. But regardless, the jokes already flew by. We're going to have to move it on. Maybe some other jokes will come along later on if I can think of any. It is indeed quite late in the race day now. So not really the space where we're going to focus on that, especially when it comes to what happened during lap 1 that pretty much sapped our energy for a bit. But we're still keeping it nice and tidy for you guys here that are watching. Of course, thank you very much for sticking with us throughout the entirety of the race day. Glad to see you for future race days as well. In fact, we do have a bunch of regulars here on a consistent basis. Here we go, Bruno De Carmo trying to make it past Peter Zuba here, lining up on the throttle just slightly into Nürburgring. Zuba not really giving him any quarter just yet, but you know for a fact that Bruno De Carmo is still just hunting for an opportunity. In fact, the battle between Peter Zuba and Rezende is pretty much put paid to, because now he has to contend with Bruno here.
Yeah, imagine that. Another Brazilian right behind him. And it's the teammate to the guy that he's been chasing throughout his entire race. So really then, it's a case of, again, he just cannot get rid of these Tony Kanaan guys. And guess what? He's going to have to work hard here to defend, because that was a really poor exit coming out of the chicane. Here comes De Carmo on the inside. Comes through, but Zuba has the inside line coming through. The turn to corner. Whoa, they just touched each other. Really, really close there. And De Carmo, I think they even back out of it.
Yeah, Carmo just committed to that move, and in fact, it was Peter Zuba that ended up worse off, because here comes Tobias Soriano making it past him, as well as they're coming into Adelaide here. He's sending it, ooh, and he locks it up at the entrance. Actually gets a pretty nice straight line out of it as well. Doesn't really lose too much speed, but he did lose that position to Tobias Soriano here.
Looked like he almost had a handbrake done there. Actually,
yeah.
You look almost like a handbrake turn, not gonna lie. Of course, these cars don't have handbrakes, otherwise you'll be drifting it out through the corners anyway. But the way that he got the car stopped and then get back on the power was really acute, but unfortunately not very good in terms of how he wanted to come by other guys who actually used the outside line and had better exit speed. So Soriano and De Carmo just went by him. Luckily though, he got it stopped just in time to avoid a situation that what happened to Pedro Dean in that previous race.
Yeah, and again, Adelaide hairpin really proving to be Peter Zuba's kryptonite here. That's the second time he's suffered a bit of a malfunction on that particular hairpin. And Tobias Soriano and Peter Zuba and Bruno De Carmo here are now running away, as Jason Rezende Actually making it past Valero. No, Valero's went off under chicane.
Oh wow, a Frenchman on home soil. It's not been a happy return for him, isn't it? That was just an unfortunate incident for him. It may have been an unforced error. He hit a curve one time too hard, and that was enough to send him spinning backwards. And that was exactly what I was pointing to about what happened to Rubens Barrichello in 2003, where he just hit the curve a bit too hard, spun it around, and loses a whole boatload of positions. But luckily for him, he didn't get collected by anybody. Leonard saw him really far and just got by. But for Valero, this is gonna be what happened to him, Damon.
Oh yeah, there you go. He leapt over the first curve and immediately didn't have the great line out of the second one. Started flying, couldn't collect the car in time for him to make that exit, and just spins and tail over end on the rear end on the start finish straight. Able to rejoin relatively safely, however. Looked like he might have dinged the barrier, but looks like he kept it clean.
Indeed, he did. He just probably tried to give himself a bit more space to the other guys coming through the final corner. That was actually quite good foresight for him. He just wanted to avoid completely ending his race there and then, as Soriano then was coming out to the end of Jackson Resende. Or in fact, no, it's Bruno De Carmo. So De Carmo battling with Soriano. Brazilians 1, 2, 3, 4 incidentally, so we kind of missed that a bit. It flew a bit under our radar. If only Dantas didn't have his woes at the start of the race, it could have been a Brazilian 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh, what was that? I think that was Juan Blena. He just went off. Oh,
Blena indeed went off, and he's
another victim.
And for Valero, it's 2 straight laps at the exact same corner. You saw that was actually Valero that came through. We might need a replay of what happened there that time, but Blena really went off big time and amazingly kept it out of the walls.
Yeah, honestly, it's really surprising how he manages to keep out of dangerous way here. Here comes Juan Blena. Flipped the first curve, had a nice line into the second curve, but cut the curve way too deep and then ended up collecting himself out of the exit there. So yeah, we mentioned before how dangerous these curves can be, especially for cars like this. Case in point, 2 laps in a row, both Valero and Juan Blena falling victim to it.
Wow, wait. And I thought Valero was involved there because he was his car immediately behind from where we were seeing in the camera just now. We thought it was a collision, but luckily for both of their sakes, it was just a simple driver error from Blenard's part, and no one else was harmed in that particular incident.
Yeah, but now there's a big shift in the current rhythm of the race right now. David Toff is up to P7, or really off the back of a couple of unforced errors. Juan Blena making it past Villarreal again, so he's still trying to claw his way back up, but we are on the final lap already, so there's really not much space for him to do anything else. Now we'll have to see if David Toff is going to make it past him. As they're entering the final lap, Ralph Benitez really not having any competition. In fact, he's 4 seconds clear of Pedro Dean right now. The gap has just been increasing non-stop since the beginning of the race, so he is really not challenged at all. Maxer Resende in P3, very strong finish relative to what he experienced throughout this entire race day here. He's going to be pretty happy with that. Pedro Dean also in P2, his best result so far today.
And you can see just now that Bruno De Carmo actually gave the position away to Tobias Soriano because he actually cut the corner one too many, or as Fernando Alonso once said, cut the chicken. Really, really unfortunate that he lost momentum there. Otherwise, it would have been a formation finish between himself and his teammate Jackson Resende. So he's giving chase to Soriano, half a second between both of them. As here comes Peter Zuba then on our sights being chased by David Toff. So both, actually I think Zuba is a Polish guy, with David Toff being Hungarian behind him. That's going to be a bit complicated between the both of them if they were to hit each other towards the end of this race. They were helping each other out in qualifying, mind you, because Toff and Zuba were together throughout the entire period. But now, it's all every man for themselves here, coming to the final sector of this entire race.
Yeah, and then looking in front here, this is Ralph Benitez exiting the chicane for the final time this race. Here he is crossing the line, 4 seconds clear of everyone else, and what a performance from him. Pedro Dean also crossing the line, Jackson Resende in P3, Tobias Soriano and Carmo crossing the line after. Here comes Zuba and Toff. Toff unable to make any headway. Valero, very unfortunate finish for him. Going to be in P8 here with Gaston Kohavi, P9, Juan Blena in P10, Diego Villarreal 11th, 12th would be Tim State, and Evandro Dantas with P13, with Lebigre out of the running for this race.
Yeah, but he's the only retiree this time around. as Villarreal comes across the line. We're waiting for Tim State to be the other one here after quite an understated race for him. He finishes in P12. There he is. And now we follow with the very hapless Evandro Dantas. I have to admit, that is a really tough pill to swallow, isn't it? 2 consecutive heats that had so much promise, but unfortunately, one was because of him through no fault of his own. He just tapped the back of somebody, as we can see a piece of debris flying across the screen. I'm not sure what that. He just tapped the back of somebody, loses his front wing, lost the entire race. Then the second heat, it's his own mistake. He just hit the curve one time too hard, spun it around, lost his front wing once again. So the Danta as well. That's your heart goes out to him, isn't it? He'll probably be looking forward to tomorrow's set of races.
Yeah, definitely. And here you go, the standings here. Our session winner, that is not our session winner, as a matter of fact. It is going to be Ralph Benitez as our P1 finisher for Heat 2, Pedrodin in P3. Jackson Vicente makes it a Brazilian 1, 2, and 3 finish here. Tobias Soriano playing a bit of a spoiler to the top 4 Brazilians here in P4. Bruno De Carbo will be P5. Peter Zuba in 6. David Hoff in 7. Gael Valero in P8 through an unfortunate set of circumstances. Gaston Clahavio will be in P9. Juan Blanat will be in P10. Diego Villarreal in P11. Tim State P12. And then Evandro Natas rounding up the 13 top finishers. Bruno Carmo here with the fastest lap as well, so another consolation for him. But regardless of that, I mean, what a race it was, huh?
Yeah, it was a crazy one, wasn't it? And the point of how crazy was that we actually had some trouble trying to pick out where Benitez was towards the end there, where his camera was, but finally the production managed to get it through. But yeah, we did say earlier, this tiny narrow track and a small set of cars coming together proved to be quite a successful hit, and I'm glad that we had this car track couple going through.
Yeah, a unique combination gave us some very, very intense racing. I would really be interested to see what's going to happen tomorrow. In fact, the schedule will show as well. So if you guys want to see what's going to happen tomorrow, feel free to check out the schedule. And if you want to take part as well, we can also sign up at the link amxrace.com. But in terms of what happened today, I mean, after what happened with the TCR cars at Indianapolis, I mean, what an exciting end to the race day here.
Yep, indeed. And well, we're actually going to go immediately to the interviews now. And first up we have on our list is David Toff. So that'll be interesting to hear his perspective on what was actually quite an undulating race for him, from the highest of highs to the toughest second races. So we'll get to the interview straight away. So then, here we are in the interview room with a really delighted David Toff after what he was doing in qualifying, a very close one, 200ths of a second in it between the both of them, between him and Benitez. But we're going to talk about through the entire race, shall we say. That qualifying effort was really tough. It was a really tough one, wasn't it? It was very close. How did you manage to pull off that lap in the toughest of circumstances?
Hello. Yeah, it was quite challenging, you know, because the rear was overheating all the time. So I wanted to have a slow lap to cool everything down, and hopefully I got a very good draft into turn 3, and from that point on I could manage to finish the lap. But yeah, it was very close. It was challenging to do the last corner in perfect way, because it was easy to go wide and get an X, and if you get it, your next lap is also ruined. So yeah, qualifying was really challenging.
Indeed, and you were talking about the draft just now. We did see during the broadcast that you were kind of working with Peter Zuba. Were you in contact with him, or you just actually had a bit of a gentleman's agreement among yourselves that you can help each other with the draft?
Yeah, we talked together during the race, because we're both Hungarians, and yeah, it was not something that we planned to do it, but in the end it happened, and yeah, it was quite helpful.
Indeed, and that really paid off, especially towards the end of the qualifying. Oh, and apologies to Peter because I thought he was Polish, so thanks for clarifying that he is actually Hungarian. But yeah, so going on to that first heat, it was quite a tough race, isn't it? Yes, of course you managed to get through in the end, about 3.7 seconds behind Lebigre. But talk us through how it was like to actually carve your way through the field, especially in a circuit where there was pretty much not that many overtaking spots to come with.
Yeah, I didn't check the replay, but I saw that a couple of people died in turn 1 and they stacked together there, so I could overtake a lot of people. So I think going into turn 3 I was already like P5, so at that point on it was like staying with them, and if I'm close to them I want to do an overtake. And it was not so easy because in turn 2 it was very bad in draft. I could overheat the front tires quite easily, and yeah, hopefully finally it was easy to continue from that point on. It was everybody was so friendly and so competitive. So yeah, from after the first lap it was quite enjoying and quite easy to race.
Yep, and a couple of questions now, the last few ones. What did you find yourself after that initial crazy start in heat number 2? Because we could have sworn that you might have been involved in there, but it looked as though you cut away pretty much almost unscathed. What was it like from your perspective?
Yeah, the chaos was there in race 2 as well, and after the chicane, after the hairpin, somebody collided in front of me and I couldn't react in time, so I had a front wing damage, and I was thinking about maybe pitting and doing a fast repair to avoid that bad driving experience what I had, but the pit is too long, so I was like, okay, I have to survive it somehow. And actually in the corners it was quite easy to drive because the car was not that oversteery, but in the straights I lost a lot of tense, and yeah, hopefully I finished like P8 or P9, so I think that was the maximum I could achieve.
Correction, I think it was about P7 in the end, but yeah, probably a couple of drivers got penalties there. But either way, congrats on the pole position and the podium in the first heat. We'll hope to see you again in the future races.
Thank you, guys.
So then that was David Toff with a very pleased reaction, I would say, with how the races went. Though it's quite an interesting insight, wasn't it, that it was the rear tires that overheated a lot and the final chicane turned out to be the most tricky. But moving on from that, we will have another interview right now with your Heat 2 winner, Ralph Benitez. So, parabéns, Ralph. Welcome to the interview. How are you feeling right now?
Yeah, mate, thanks. It was a great feeling. And in my first race was not so good because Pedro didn't hit me, but it's okay, no problem. I know you, and he's a good guy. And in race 2, I just tried my best. I start in P2, and I just take P1 and I go the more fast I can. So I win the race, but it's not easy because it's a very strong grid of the drivers.
Indeed, SOF might be quite high because there's a lot of drivers with good ratings in here. Talk us what happened after that collision with Pedro Dean, because that damage you had to your car was enough to slow you a bit.
Yeah, my car is totally broke, but spotter just say nothing to me, and I just see my car is broke when I in the straight, and I not speed. So I just wanna finish the race, and I know in the race 2 I start in P2, so it's fine, and I just finish the race.
Indeed, but that P2 could have actually ended up being another P14 because Dantas, which actually right in front of you, spun. you avoided him quite well. What were you thinking at that time when you wanted to go? Because it could have actually gone much worse.
Yeah, when Dantas spin in front of me.
Yep. At that time, yes. Describe how it felt like when you went through it.
I just chose the right side, and they go ahead and just I'm happy with just the right side.
Yeah.
Sorry, my bad English.
No, don't worry. You're doing pretty well right now, and to make it even better, because you're leading a Brazilian 1-2-3. Could have done a Gava bueno by saying Rabanitas do Brazil, but thanks again for joining, and hoping to see you in future races. Obrigado.
Thank you. Obrigado a todos. Thank you, man.
Kept it short and concise for Ralph there, because I think he had a lot to say, but he looked so excited to go through it. But at least we got enough out of him to see how it was like for him to actually get that win. And congrats to him as well. That really was a well-executed second race. And as well as for David Toff, good qualifying, and he got his way to second in heat number 1.
Yeah, I mean, great showings from both of them as well. Regardless of the fact that, unfortunately, our Heat 1 winner ended up just bowing out quite early in Heat 2. But the drivers taking advantage of that position definitely did some amazing driving, and very nice cap off to the day of racing we have today.
Indeed, and once again, the car and track combo really was it paid dividends big time, and I was really looking forward to this one when I saw on the schedule just now, heading before the start of the broadcast. Glad that the races were really good. So let's hope that the other ones tomorrow night will be about the same. So from Automatics, BenQ, Next Level Racing, and of course Kara, our official stewards from the Korean Auto Racing Association, a member of the FIA and FIASN, and our social media below: AMX Global on Instagram, Twitch, X formerly as Twitter, Discord, YouTube, where we have broadcast our races alongside the Twitch. Sign up for the races on AMX3.com, and of course look forward to some short form content being posted on TikTok and Instagram as well, for good measure, in the intervening weekends after this. So, Damon, any way to sum up this whole night, or I think you're kind of like funned out right now?
I mean, I'm probably checked out a little bit, but regardless, it was still really interesting racing. And as you said before, tomorrow we have, I believe, GT3s and Formula 4 cars. I'm not entirely sure, but it's going to be fun. I probably won't be around, unfortunately. It is going to be quite difficult for me to join, but for whoever is going to be on the commentary table tomorrow, best of luck to you guys, and I hope you guys have as much fun as we did here commentating of it.
Indeed. Well, that's the best way to end it off. Now, there's nothing more for me to say, but from me, Amir, alongside me, Damon, it's good night, and we'll see you tomorrow night for more action on the AMX Sim Racing World Championship Season 5. Goodbye for now.
Night.